Hello. Hello, everybody! I hear we're going to win the Grand Slam. You're all very welcome. Brian, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. It was a lovely, lovely welcome, particularly how well Adrian Barry had warmed you all up. But no, we're delighted everyone can be here this evening. It's a while since I've been back at the National Concert Hall. You have never been here?
Judging by the people I can see in the crowd, it is their and my first time in the National Concert Hall.
Okay.
We're having a culture night out, right? This is culture. It's great that you're all here. We have a brilliant show lined up. I mean, how exciting is all this? You know the guests. We're going to get into all that. Can we just touch on how confident you are first? Before we're going to get Martin Johnson out in a second, but how confident are you?
It changes with every article I read or every piece that you see on social media. I was very confident after the weekend. You know, we played well without really excelling. England were poor. But then, you know, the reality hits that, you know, it's England and Twickenham. We haven't won there since 2010, and they're trying to stop 3 losses on the bounce. So it's an incredibly tough place to go and play. I think it's in the balance. I think it's not, either way, it's going to be a one-score game. It's just a matter of who can get it done right at the end.
Interestingly, and you can tell us if this makes a jot of difference, the RFU have just come out to apologise in the last hour or so, because a video has emerged of Eddie Jones. He was giving a speech last summer, and here's a gist of what Eddie Jones was saying last summer.
Yeah, we're trying to do that with England at the moment. So we've played 23 tests. We've only lost 1 test to the scummy Irish. I'm still dirty about that game. But we'll get that back. We'll get that back. Don't worry. We've got them next year at home. We'll get them back. We'll get them back. I think we're playing in 4th round of the Six Nations, so we'll get them back.
Scummy?
It's a term of endearment in Australia. It's grand.
This is the last thing he needed this week, or will he care? Will he care?
Eddie never cares. Yeah. He never cares. He fires bullets out the whole time, and do you know what? It's fine when you're winning. You've got to take a little bit when you're on the back foot, and he's definitely on the back foot. That you get the sense that the media in England is definitely sharpening knives because he's had that confrontational relationship with them for the last couple of years.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk more about the game later, but I think we should get our first guest out, really? Shouldn't we? I want you to roll the red carpet out for him. World Cup winner, a real legend, 2 Heineken Cups with Leicester, 5 Six Nations, twice Grand Slam winner, 6 Triple Crowns, probably doesn't even count them. He's in the IRB Hall of Fame, 3 times a line, twice a captain, victorious in South Africa. We're just delighted he's here. This is brilliant. Perfect week for it. Will you give him a really warm welcome? Martin Johnson, everyone! Jump in. How about that for a welcome? That's the nicest welcome you've ever had in Dublin.
It's fantastic and slightly surprising.
I should say as well, and my bad, I should have mentioned this earlier, we are, of course, here with thanks to Heineken Rugby Club. Fans can get more out of the game, exclusive member-only events like this, tickets to Champions Cup and Challenge Cup games. Join HeinekenRugbyClub.com and come along and enjoy days like this, and they kind of make nights like this happen for us, so we're delighted to be working with them. You are very welcome. Nicest welcome you've had in Dublin. Belated happy birthday.
Yeah, there is that, yeah.
What are you up to now?
Quite a lot, 48.
Okay. And are you active? Are you doing much? I know you're a big cycling fan. What's
life
like?
I ride my bike here, trying to get out and keep doing that. It's good. Keeps you active and keeps the weight off. And
Is it the competitive juices? Is that
it's the Lycra.
It's the Lycra. Okay, right.
It's the Lycra and putting chamois cream on. No, it's you know about that. I actually really enjoy it. It's quite a buzz, you know, when you're out there and your legs feel good and you're with the boys and you're all flying along. It's not so great when you've got a headwind and rain driving in your face, but you sort of there there is a sort of strange attraction to that. But it's quite, you know, that if I don't get your fix of, I'm not a big gym person anymore and all the rest of it, I want to do something active, not just go to the gym. So it's nice.
It's not you just going out on your own, you and your thoughts. No. It is group cycling. It's a friendship thing, a camaraderie thing.
No, it's cutthroat. It's cutthroat, mate.
Okay.
It's quite competitive when we get in a nice way, in a friendly way. But you get out and you all want to, you know, do well and fly along. It's great. It's actually, I didn't think I wanted to ever do that sort of thing. But actually, when you're out there, a couple of hours, 2.5 hours, really smash yourself. It's a nice feeling, isn't it? That fatigue at the end of it, because you miss certain parts of rugby, some bits you don't. But I miss that sort of genuine fatigue and being knackered at the end of the day, and you deserve your tea and a beer and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, so pushing yourself effectively.
Yeah. And I wouldn't do it by myself. It's a lot harder, but when you're with guys, you know, some of the lads, and they drag you along, it's good fun.
Yeah, and I saw you say as well, the best sport you ever watch is your children. So is that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I missed, my boys had 2 football games today, so yeah, no, you can't. You've got skin in the game, you've got blood in the game, haven't you, when you're watching them play? So
yeah,
and it's just, you know, you just want them to enjoy it. I think sport's so much more competitive and organised, and people talking about pathways when they're 5 years old. I'm not, just let them enjoy and play. And
so were you quite on the sideline then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I am. I'm not one of those, because I applaud good play for both teams. Encourage. That's it.
Are they competitive? You've a girl and a boy, yeah?
Yeah, they're competitive. It's just in them. I think most kids are. Some kids aren't. But it's just in them. They want to compete. They want to do well. My little boy, their last rugby game at school, they were winning quite well. So the teacher took some of the best players off. Then he took one extra player off, so played with one less. My little boy was having a meltdown on the sideline. And my wife's going, "Oh, that's terrible behaviour. That's terrible." And I'm going, "No, it's not. He wants to win. He wants to be." And then they conceded a try, and he was apoplectic. And they got him back on, and my wife was going, "Oh, he'll be terrible now." I said, "No, it won't. He'll be brilliant." And he smashed the first kid who got the ball. Next time he got it, he got the try. But that, you know, they've got that in them, haven't they? And rugby's a great outlet for it. They can go and be physical in the right way. There's that discipline side to it, and you know, if he didn't do that, I'd have to fight him when we got home, and it's getting big.
We listed off your achievements there at the outset, so they are just ridiculous, really. World Cup winner in 2003, the 3 Lions Tours 93, captain in 97, captain in 01, 5 Six Nations, 2 of which were Grand Slam, 6 Triple Crowns. Do you count them?
Say yes. I've
just
got 3 of them. I definitely count them.
For Brian's sake, you do. I'll keep going. 2 Heineken Cups with Leicester, 01 and 02 against Munster. Neil back. Can brush by that. 5 premierships, and then 2011 Six Nations Championship as a coach, and very much in the Hall of Fame. Were you somebody when you were, you know, in the amateur era, starting off working in a bank and playing for Leicester? Someone like Johnny Wilkinson almost wrote down his aims and everything he wanted to be in life. Was rugby like that for you, or how did you tick? Because that's just an unbelievable CV. No,
I wasn't like Johnny. You want to go and do these things, but they almost, you know, I went to a state school in the middle of England. The great thing for me, I had the Leicester Tigers Club up the road to aspire to that had internationals and British Lions. So you sort of dream of doing that, but it almost, when you're young, it just doesn't seem real that you could ever do that. Why would I do that? I'm just the same, you know, in your school. But then you sort of, you take the steps and off you go. The biggest influence on my career by far was playing for Leicester, because the great thing with that club was, you know, I was an England schoolboy, but so what? You know, there's 7 internationals in the first team. There's England age group players all the way through the club who can't even get in the first team. So you were never a big cheese. You know, there's British Lions, the chief exec's a British Lion, the backs coach, an ex-British Lion. So you were always aspiring to be very, very good, and the standards were very, very high. You were never a big fish in that pond, and there was great examples. Dean Richards was our sort of he was the guy when we were in the team, and he was our sort of mentor, really, in terms of, and he was very old school rugby, but a great mentor. You know, it wasn't about the money and the glamour, because there wasn't any.
Sure.
There wasn't any money, and there wasn't a lot of glamour. It was about playing rugby, and it was really no different in a way to most rugby clubs, but just had that element of success and wanting to be successful on the national stage.
Because it was kind of hard to know looking in. You wouldn't have classed yourself as an obsessive whose week was ruined by losses, who defined himself totally by his rugby at any stage.
No, a week was ruined by losses, yeah, because I think the professional era was different because that was your week. If we lost, it wasn't a nice week. And I think when you hear people talk about successful clubs, it has to be like that. If you lose and you think, oh, it's all okay, we still got paid and it's great, and you keep on losing.
So would you take it out on one another though for that, right? Because that was of a time too where, you know, maybe you weren't playing quite the same amount of games as they are these days, and you can be a bit more physical at training, whereas now there's almost a game every weekend of the year, or certainly for 10 months of the year, where they just have to tone training down a bit. But Leicester had this reputation for being a team that just literally, you know, used to thump the heads off one another and then go out and win on a Saturday.
Well, we didn't know any different. We just thought that's what everyone did.
You sort of knew a bit different. I mean, it's not like it happens in every facet of life. I mean, it must have been a bit weird on the coach punching each other. It
wasn't, because that was just quite normal. We used to train quite hard and take pride in that. And yeah, I think the era has changed. We used to train very physically Monday, Tuesday particularly, and then Wednesday. And Wednesday was a famous session because they'd pick the team on a Wednesday morning. They'd announce the team. And so people would know because it's always on the Tuesday. Don't read anything into this, but you 15 go over there. It would look very much like a first 15. The rest of you, but Wednesday would be official. So you've got the 15 that are picked are okay. You've got 6 or 7 on the bench who are sort of, and then you've got the rest of the guys that are totally peed off because they haven't got any rugby for the weekend. And I was lucky; I played every week. But when you're a pro and you don't get to actually play at the weekend, it is a bit soul destroying. So Wednesday we'd go out and we would do defence. So they'd run as the opposition. So they'd have to run as whoever we were playing that week. And of course, the coaches would always say, "Oh, we'll start off at 50%," which means they'd start off at 90%. So we'd have to get ourselves revved up, and they'd start running through us, and someone would get embarrassed, so he'd get peed off, and then it would all turn into a very intense 10, 15 minutes, and probably a couple of fights. But then we sort of knew everyone was ready to play if we got to that level of intensity where everyone's flying around.
Yeah.
And it just became a little bit of an in thing that we did, and everyone was okay with it. No one really got hurt.
Yeah, okay.
Apart from those guys that got hurt.
Yeah.
But it was about the physical preparation, getting you mentally ready. Not physically, did it make any difference if we did it or not? No, not in any one day. But mentally, you're getting ready for the game, and you're showing to everyone else, I'm ready to go and play. And because that's the whole game. If you go out, if you've got 15 guys and you're ready to go, you're more than halfway there.
Yeah.
And you can adapt. You can change the tactics; they may change, and whatever it may be. But you'll generally find a way. If you've got 3 or 4 guys who aren't there, then it's going to be tough. So it was that sort of thing, really.
That's a really interesting point that we'll touch on a bit later on. But it's about mentally being there and how England are going to be able to switch off the back of a couple of results. How much focus do you give towards playing scared and playing knowing that knives are being sharpened and in the background your spot's at stake?
Well, I think more than that. When I played with an England team that went to try and win Grand Slams away from home a number of times, and it was always bloody difficult. So for the England team, they've just got to be thinking, if we lose on Saturday, Ireland are going to win a Grand Slam at Twickenham. And from an English point of view, we don't really want that. Did I say that neutrally? Did I say that in a neutral tone?
That's fair. Very fair.
So I remember we played one in '94 when Wales came to England, came to Twickenham looking for a Grand Slam. And we got on the bus, and as we were going towards the ground, there was a Welsh supporter with Grand Slam 1994 written on his T-shirt. And I remember the boys thinking, that's it, that's the final straw. And you just, so that mentality is powerful. I've seen it work against England a number of times. So hopefully they can harness that and make it a decent game. Because if they play like they have done the last 2 weeks, you're going to have a good day.
The way you talk about Leicester there, and I suppose, being very much bothered if there was a loss and you're cycling now, to get you to empty yourself and get that feeling.
I don't have a fight on Wednesday if I don't win.
Yeah. What's your relationship with rugby now? Like last time we saw you involved was obviously with England.
Yeah.
Have you walked away and said, I'm done with rugby?
I'd never be done with rugby. I'm not got any official involvement. I like to be able to choose what I want to do. So if I watch my kids play Saturdays more than...
I suppose coaching at a professional level.
Yeah, I don't know. I never say never. Maybe with kids might be something, with youngsters might be something, the sort of under-19s maybe at some point. But it's time of life, isn't it? My kids are at the age where they're sort of busy. That will change. I can see it with my daughter. As she gets older, that will change, and you'll have more time on your hands. So who knows? I've never planned anything really in my life. It just sort of flowed and went along, and generally been.
So do these sort of events, are these the little hit of rugby that you get to almost
I've done a bit with
entertain
the BBC.
Yourself and vent at times and get a chance to chat about
vent.
it versus coaching or the little bit of punditry that you do?
Yeah, I've done a bit with the BBC this year. They've sort of been sort of saying for a couple of years, do you want to come and do it? I thought, no. But I went and did it this year and enjoyed doing it. I did quite a bit last year with the British Lions and some of the sponsors going into that, so I've quite enjoyed watching it again. So, yeah, who knows? I mean, will I just stay on the TV? I don't know. Honestly, don't know. You just take it as it comes.
Because we were almost wondering, you retired in 05, and then, God, so early, 08, England job. Yeah, that is in at the deep end early. We weren't actually sure if, when you left in 2011 after the World Cup, which was messy in all sorts of ways, I presume for you, and stressful, if you almost said, I'm out, I don't want anything to do with this again.
Well, at the time, yeah, it's good to get out for a little bit because it's a stressful job. But things change. You don't know how you're going to feel in a year, 2 years. I've had a few offers in the years between, nothing that really got me excited. So if you want to go and coach like you want to play, you've got to be 100% into it. You've got to be really, really, I want to do this. And it's a life, it'll take over your life. There's nothing else really much other than your family you can fit into that.
How do you reflect on those 3 years coaching England?
Yeah, it was never dull. It's interesting because you look back and you make decisions at the time based on what you know at the time. And
you were sure you were going to take it, like 3 years retired once the offer came?
It was one of those. It was out of the blue a little bit. It was a gamble, a risk, but I made that decision to do it. We did win a championship in 11.
Sure.
So we did. It was an interesting time. England were they still had a few guys around who'd been there for 10 years, but the team was transitioning. Quite a lot of them still there. I think if we did anything well, eventually we brought on some guys and got them started in international rugby, who some of them have done, the best part of 10 years now, who are still on the team. And it's one of those, you get to a World Cup, you're never that far away. And we'd beaten France that year, we lost to them in a quarter-final, we didn't play very well, we didn't deserve to win. You win that game, you play 20% better, 10% better, you have a chance to win that game. We would have played Wales in a semi-final, who knows? But that's the nature of it. You lose, with Stewart in 2015. They'd had a great build-up, and they didn't even make the quarter-finals, and they lost to Wales in a game they probably should have won. So it's pretty cutthroat. As we've seen with Eddie, he's had a great run, but 2 losses, and suddenly the world seems a different place.
With hindsight, and you look back, do you wish your progression as a coach had been a bit more graded rather than going in right at the top?
Yeah, possibly.
Built, but a level of experience in advance of taking the top job?
Yeah, I had very experienced coaches. The guys I had coaching were very experienced. I think with that, you've got to win the media battle. I think if I didn't judge anything, it was winning that media battle and understanding how important that is, which Stuart did very well.
Sorry to interrupt. In what way did you lose the media battle?
Oh, they had no respect for when you've got people saying these coaches are. I mean, we beat Wales one year, and the headline was, well, everyone would take the Wales coaches over the England coaches, but so actually they've done quite well to beat Wales. So when you have that surrounding you, it becomes the accepted truth that your coaches aren't very good and blah blah blah. Where it's an opinion.
It's difficult for you to win that. Like, I don't know what you could have done to almost win that
over. It's hard when that becomes assumed knowledge that you know this is the fact if it's written in the media. So you have to try and win that battle. And I probably didn't do a good enough job of doing that, really.
As in cranky with the media, not open enough, or
yeah, possibly. Yeah, just I mean, you probably need to have them. You certainly need to have them on side.
Okay.
So it's probably a lot more time spent with that relationship, unless you're winning everything. You know, I don't think Eddie has that relationship with the media particularly, but if you're winning, you're I remember at one point I was told I'd need to be, you know, Fabio Capello was doing the England job.
Yeah.
And you've got to be like Fabio Capello. He's done a fantastic job. I said, okay. Well, I ended up at a sort of conference with Fabio Capello, and Andy Flower, the England cricket coach, was there, and a guy from the NFL called Mike Holmgren, and all those guys spoke very, very well. Fabio Capello could barely speak English, and spent more time than all of us combined to say absolutely nothing in this conference. So, yeah, but he was winning at the time, and as soon as he loses, he's gone, and it was all a disaster, and players couldn't understand him, and blah blah blah. So, you have to sometimes take those things with a pinch of salt.
I'm sure, yeah. I should say, by the way, if you want to send in your tweets, we'd love you to, and we'll ask some of your questions, hopefully, to Martin. Hashtag OTBHRC, as in hashtag Off the Ball Heineken Rugby Club, is the hashtag, and you're also with a chance to be in our crappy quiz at the end and win Champions Cup tickets, prizes. Like, as you said, you won a Six Nations 2011, and don't worry, I'm not going to drag on about your coaching the whole time.
Winning the Six Nations in 2011 again.
Yeah, and you won 10 of 13 that year. It was far from a disaster. It's almost that World Cup, like you think back of it, and before you look, you think of the drunken pictures, the dwarf throwing competition. It's just like Mike Tyndall and the royal family, like press officers, are frantically trying to get hold of Tyndall because he's in all sorts of bother, and
Manu jumping off the boat.
Jumped off the ferry. I think we should all jump off the ferry.
And I do remember your press conferences, and there was if your face said 1,000 words, it was that I can't believe this absolute nonsense is going on all around me. Like, how did that happen?
Well, you know, it's one of those. You get there and you say to the boys, "You're at the World Cup. You're in New Zealand. You're in the Goldfish Bowl. You don't need to do this, and this." And we did this. Yeah, I mean, if you take those incidents, what they really were, to how they get blown out of all proportion.
I'm sure.
I mean, you guys were in that bar in Queenstown.
Yeah, we had a decent night. They didn't do midget throwing on Thursdays, so that was your error.
Like, when I'd say, can you remember what you thought when you first saw it in the paper? Like, I just can't imagine what you would even think.
Yeah, well, it was on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. So it was endless. But once they got the hooks into you, that became the story, didn't it? That became the story, not the rugby, even to a point. That became the whole story. So, as I say, once you've lost it, you've lost the whole thing. And that you know, it's getting run 24 hours a day on Sky Sports News or whatever it is. It's endless. So if we'd won the quarter-final, I don't know. I don't know what the perception would have been if we'd actually got to a final of a World Cup. But once you lose, that's it. You know, you're all. It's one way or the other, isn't it? It's all. You know, there's not a huge balanced response.
And did you decide I'm done, or?
Yeah, I mean, the bad thing was it just dragged rugby through the mud. Some of the lads were a bit immature, if anything, but they're not bad guys. You know, they're just a bit immature and caught out, despite. You tell them, it's like kids, isn't it? You've got to tell them the next day and the next day. So I just thought it needs a fresh start. You know, we'd just be dragging that around with us. So if we kept it, so it needs a fresh start. And the best thing I could do was let someone do that, because a lot of the players carried on to the next World Cup, and some will go to the next. So you know, a lot of those guys have come through it okay.
Did you completely remove yourself from rugby? for the 8, 9, 10 months after that? Watching, keeping an interest, reading media, or did
I
you
just
stay?
did my usual probably. I watched a bit, watched what I wanted to do, you know, just picked and choose. Well, I don't watch a huge amount of club rugby in the UK. Watch the internationals. Yes and no. I didn't deliberately sort of take any big decisions. You just live your life. You just crack on. I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, you've disappeared and all the rest of it. The media would say, oh, you've gone into hiding. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just living at home, doing my normal stuff. Take the kids to school. I'm very fortunate. I've been very fortunate to be very successful. You know, win stuff but also lose. You know, you read out all the, oh, you won the World Cup. And I played in 3, so we lost 2. Won 1 Lions Tour, lost 2. You know, won 2 European Cups, played in another 7 that we didn't win. Sure. You know, won 4 or 5 leagues, but played another 10 that we didn't win. So your life's not always up there, and you learn to take the ups and the downs and keep them in perspective. You know, I've always had, I think, the game in perspective. I was committed to it. I wanted to be successful. I was upset and disappointed if we didn't win. But generally, I think I've always had it in perspective in terms of life. You know, there is more important things in life, and I know when things happen, people will say that. But I think I always had that view.
Yeah, okay. We have had, I'm sure a number of you have done it. We have the green chair in the audience where we've asked you to tell stories, rugby related, funny or otherwise. We have someone in the green chair at the moment, a familiar face, I think, to a lot of you. He was holding up the Irish pack across much of the 90s. Nick Popplewell, are you there?
I'm here.
Looking very content there, Nick.
Yeah, it's great to have a chair that fits my arse, and in fairness. I might bring it home.
What story? What story would you like to tell?
And I'm not really that sure, because I thought this was going to be recorded and played tomorrow rather than being played in front of you guys this evening. But anyway, what can I say about the big man? Extremely witty, intelligent. Not really, I suppose. But I first met Jono on the Lions trip in '93. I forget what. I think, Jono, did you come in the first test or the second test? Second test, was it?
I came in and played the second test. I played the week before against Auckland.
Yeah.
So I arrived the Thursday before the first test.
Martin Bayfield got knocked out, I think, in a Wednesday match, and Wade Dooley, I think, the other English lock, went home, I think, 3 or 4 weeks earlier. His dad died. So Martin arrived out, I remember the first training session, and I was in the Saturdays, or the test squad at that stage, and this young fella came in. I think you were only, you were 20 or 21, were you?
No, I was 22, 23.
22, 23. Anyway, I got annoyed you on something, and I said, listen, fuck off. And the next minute I got a fucking smack in the head, and I said, Jesus. And this fella's on the Wednesday side. But I remember Dean Richards, who was a very, very good friend of mine, and would have been, I'm sure, a mentor and a good colleague of yours in Leicester and when you were growing up or whatever. I think I was rooming with you when you got picked for the test side. So Dean came up to me and said, listen, Jono's a great man for the books. I said, okay, sounds a bit fucking strange to tell me that, but there you go. Anyway, we got to bed. No, we didn't get to bed together, obviously there's 2 single beds. And I was just about to have lights out, and Jono, got this, I don't know, 20 or 30 books and put them beside the bed. And so here we go. Opened one, took out a box of crayons and started colouring it in. I'm only joking, you lads, I'm only joking. It wasn't crayons, it was actually felt tip pens. Anyway, the last time I met Jono, which was more poignant, I suppose, was at one of Doddy's. Doddy had a fantastic testimonial in London there just before Christmas. And it was a very, very good-natured affair. What Doddy wanted was all his friends and colleagues and anyone that knew him and wanted to know him to get together in a big room and have a great night of fun, which we all had. So this it was very well organised, I think, by a lot of the Newcastle players and some of his Scottish colleagues. And I think they sold tables from $2,000 to $10,000. Needless to say, I was on a $2,000 table and you were on a $10,000 table. I was with a bunch of Newcastle rowdies. But during the evening, there was a huge raffle. Now, this, just to be quite serious, anyone who doesn't know, Dolly's got MS, and unfortunately, you know, he's due to pass away in the next year or two, and he's got young kids, and it's absolutely quite dreadful. But I think this event raised actually over £500,000 or something, huge amount of money. But there was a raffle on it, and this raffle was going on all night, and I left my 2,000 table because, in fairness, I wasn't really surrounded by salubrious people. They were just, as I said, yobbos from Newcastle. And I was doing my meet and greet, and I saw Jono, and Jono had a space beside his table, and I sat down. I said, "John, is it all right to sit down here for a minute?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Who's sitting here?" So, Lord, somebody or other, I think, has gone out for a cigar. So that's fantastic. With that, anyway, sorry, I won't dwell. With that, the raffle prizes were announced, and Lord, whoever you call its wife, won a prize, and she was given an envelope. And obviously we were really interested to know what was in it, not. So John, being the gentleman he is, said, "Oh, well done, your ladyship. What did you win?" So she took out 2 tickets. And Jono said, "Oh, what are the tickets for?" "Oh, they're 2 tickets to go to Pavarotti." And Jono said, "Is that for 1 week or 2 weeks?"
Nick Popplewell, everyone.
I haven't finished yet.
All right, okay.
Oh, I have. No,
Nick Popplewell.
I'm only joking. Johnny, you're a legend, bud. Absolute legend. And it's a pleasure to see you again.
Nick Popplewell. Nick will be out later on. I suspect you should say everything you want to say now, as opposed to saving anything. 2003. My goodness. How often, do you come over here often? Do you bump into Irish people often, and do they ever not mention 2003?
2003, which bit?
Oh, not the World Cup part.
365 days. Yes, I bump into Irish people quite a lot because you get about. And yeah, sometimes they mention that. Yeah.
Do they? Okay, well just, I want to get your thoughts on it, obviously. Here's just a reminder, not that I suspect any of you need them. So Grand Slam decider as well, I mean, it's mad. That part's almost forgotten. Grand Slam decider at the Lansdowne Road in 2003.
Maybe to the standard, the very high standard that he has. But he is a big game player with a big game temperament. And Richard Hill has consistently been, over the last 4 or 5 years, the best forward in the championship.
Well, an animated Martin Johnson there, and he is keen to get on with things. And you have to sympathise just a bit, don't you?
Well, the nerves are on edge at them, as we all know, and you don't really want to be kept waiting too long. Otherwise, I think that the opening minute could be more explosive than we thought it was.
In some cases, the game could be won or lost in these 5 minutes beforehand. We've 3 anthems to be played. We have a presentation to go on.
And presumably now they're lined up very early. I mean, presumably we're waiting for Mary McAleese, the Irish president, to meet the teams. I think the argument was about where England line up. And I think it's getting his.
I think everybody's going to be on edge. I don't think Mary will get a whole lot of quality chat and banter out there today, to be honest. You can see it. It looks very tense. I'm tense in here. I'm sitting down. Struggling.
I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah. The wooden spoon perspective.
Thanks, all right. Wooden spoon.
Stir it with the spoon. Go on.
I know. We beat Azerbaijan yesterday, though.
And now the crowd are getting impatient as well. They just want this one to start.
So I presume, first off, people wondered if that was premeditated. That is, I dare say that's not something you do.
Do you want the whole story?
Every detail.
Like most of these things, it's not, the real story is a little bit more mundane. But there is a backstory to a little bit. We'd gone through 99, 2000, 2001, played very well, should have won a Grand Slam probably. End of the season, found different ways to lose to Wales, Scotland, then Ireland, consecutive games. I mean, you couldn't write it. 2002, we lose away in Paris, so we haven't won a Grand Slam. 2003, that season, we beat New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, consecutive weekends at home at Twickenham. Play France in the first game, which the UK media said, why are you playing that first game? It's the only game that counts. It's the only two teams that have got a chance to win it, blah, blah, blah. We win that. And then the rest of the Six Nations, without being arrogant, was a little bit low-key because we beat Wales away. We didn't play great, beat Italy, beat Scotland. Suddenly we had this massive game to beat Ireland in a World Cup year to win a Grand Slam. And a lot of us are getting on. We're not putting out many more chances. And Wednesday before, we flew on this. It was a Sunday, wasn't it? It was a Sunday game. We flew out on the Thursday. Anyway, Wednesday before, Clive would have his normal sort of end of the training block sort of meeting and chat. And normally not a lot got said, but this one was massive because he sat us down and he said, listen, what we've been through the last 4 years, there's no hiding place. You guys we've got nowhere to go to if we lose this game. There's nowhere to go. And when you play big games, you never talk about winning because that's obvious. It's all about winning. But I've never been in a meeting where anyone's ever said that. And it was a huge, huge call. And I sat there thinking, wow, that's a massive call. But you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right because it's been ridiculous. We should have won at least one or two. And we can't not do it because that team had been very successful. But at home, all people would talk about was the game you lost. So you might win 9 out of 10. The only game they talk about is the Scotland game or the Ireland game, at the foot and mouth game in 2001, or losing at Wembley in 1999. So we went into Dublin in the last chance saloon because the World Cup year. We then toured New Zealand and Australia, and it was a massive game. One of the biggest games of my life in terms of we just had to win. And if you'd said to us before the game, you can win by a point in the worst game of rugby ever played in the history of the sport with a dodgy drop goal that hits the back of someone's head and goes over, we'd have taken it because it's a win. So we were very, very determined. But the world had changed. Ireland were going for a Grand Slam. And the atmosphere was very, very confrontational in Dublin as we left the hotel. But it was great for us because normally when we used to come to Dublin, I remember when I first came, we used to stay up in the north. I forget the name of the hotel, but we were
in Portmarnock.
I don't think it was Portmarnock, but it was a hotel way out. It was out of town. It was lovely. It was sort of by the coast, and everything was very relaxed, and everyone was beautiful and peaceful. And it wasn't like being, And the boys would say, "Don't get lulled into this false sense of security because you get there Saturday afternoon, they'll try and kick the living daylights out of you." And but anyway, 2003 was very, very confrontational. It was very, the atmosphere was unbelievable, wasn't it? Unbelievable. So we get to the stadium and we go out and we warmed up at that side. And then you won the toss. We went to toss the coin and I was unbelievably tense. And you were a relatively young captain for Ireland, weren't you, second year?
Five or six games into it, yeah.
Nervous looking. I was trying to... You were?
What?
I was very nervous. I was faking not being nervous.
That's my shitting my pants look.
Yeah. Well, I was twice as bad, but I was faking it because you have to learn how to fake it. But it was just, it was. But when you play a game like that, it's you against the world a little bit because the crowd's there. So we went out. You chose to play that way. You attacked the end. We warmed up. Yeah. So I just naturally went out to the right-hand side because we'd warmed up that side. Normally when you play at a stadium, there's a tunnel and there's a changing room on either side. Most stadia are like that. And that's your side. You warm up that side, you run out that side, that's their side. The old Lansdowne was different in that both changing rooms were on this side. So we'd warmed up that side.
Or someone would guide you as you're running out, point you in a direction.
Yeah. So we ran out that side. Because we were playing that way and we'd warmed up that side. So we lined up, and the thing that set it off was the guy who asked me to move was not the referee. If the referee had said to me, "You're that side," we'd have just moved because it wouldn't have been a big deal. It wasn't a big deal, the actual moving. But it was. Now, I don't want to disrespect the guy who came out, but he was He was in a donkey jacket, I think. Was he the groundsman's assistant?
I don't even know. Was he the stadium announcer?
No,
or?
he wasn't. He didn't look like a stadium announcer. And at that point, when you're a couple of minutes away, I mean, sometimes, I don't know if it was when we tossed up, about 15 minutes before the game, an Irish official came up with a shirt for me to sign. And I said, mate, go away, I'll do it after. You've got no idea what you're going through 15 minutes before kickoff in one of the biggest games of your life. So you're getting revved up to play. At that point, I'm going to listen to my team, my people, and the referee. That's it, full stop, in the world. So when this guy comes out and says, move the fellas down there, I said, no, we're not going anywhere, just get on with the game. And the crowd went absolutely crazy. Because they were ready, they were very hyped up. They were absolutely bananas. And if you look at the tape, I've got Graham Rowntree and Neil Back next to me. And Backy just goes, he's very cold, Backy. He just went, can't move now. And I was looking, it's quite cringeworthy watching that, but I was looking at Graham Rowntree. He's got this silly smirk on his face because he knows you're in that mood, and I'm stomping up and down. And then a guy in a blazer came out and said, you've got to go that side. And I said, that's when it all sort of kicked off. And then there was this pause, wasn't there? Because I saw you guys sort of trudging up this way, and I thought, what are they doing?
I had my own dilemma. I'll tell it in a second when you finish.
Because you were looking a bit hesitant walking up, and I thought you were going to the far end, to the terrace, to rev up the crowd. Honestly, I didn't know. And
but did the guy who came up in the jacket not say to you, this is the side, you have to go that side, otherwise the president will have to walk in the grass? Did you understand?
He didn't say to that because my response to him was more abrupt. The way I remember it, and it was kicking off. So I think he realised he wasn't going to get. Yeah. I can't really, you don't remember the detail of that after because there was a pause then. It seemed like a pause, and I remember thinking, what happens now? Do they call the police? Do they move? I don't know. And I was genuinely just.
Because you don't.
Because you got yourself in a position then, haven't you?
Well, I mean, as Back said, you can't move now, but you don't look in. Like it looks like there's no doubt. It looks like there's no fear. It's like I'm not moving. It's really interesting to hear that behind the scenes you were thinking that.
That's the sort of when you're about to play. That's the mood you're in anyway. That's where you get yourself to play the game. So I'll be like that on any Saturday afternoon.
But that the thought crossed your mind, I could be in big trouble here.
Not so much that. I just thought, what's going to happen? Are they going to get, because nothing. When I've watched it, but I only watched it back on tape once, it's a bit cringeworthy, but it's quite a long time, isn't it? It's quite a long time. And, but the thing was, as soon as we kicked off, the crowd sang Fields of Athen Right, and I've only had the hair stand up on the back of my neck once in my life, and that was it. It was a big game, and the atmosphere was very special. And it was a cracking game, and Ireland played very, very well. They actually played better in that game, I think, than the game they won 2 years before. That sounds ridiculous at the scoreline, but they actually did play. I think they had more of the game, were more of a threat in many ways. And at the end of it, no one really talked about it or in our group or to us or the media or anything. They just were talking about the game. And it was a Monday when we left, it got a little bit of traction in the media and then took off, as these things do, to mythology levels. I'm sure.
And can you remember thinking at any point when the president came out and shook the English team's hands and then moved on to the grass, was there a moment where you thought, oh, now I understand?
Not really, because I wasn't really thinking about the grass, because I was stood on it the whole time. I really wasn't. If you actually look at the red carpet, it's not long enough anyway. half our reserves are off the end of it anyway. And if you guys had stayed there, she'd never have stood on the grass and all the rest. I honestly didn't even know who was coming out because it's not. You're in a game like that. We're in Last Chance Saloon, do or die, blah blah blah. Look, it's rugby, but it was like that, and I had no idea who was coming out. And I mean, I probably didn't even know there was a presentation until we got out there and we started lining up like there's a presentation, because you don't talk about that. I know we probably received a 13-page briefing document at some point, but I didn't read it. My bad.
What were you thinking?
Well, we ran out, and obviously ran out second and ran off to the left. I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's funny, you know, that was my 6th or 7th game as captain, and I didn't even know we had a side that we favoured until Kevin Maggs came up when we were in our huddle and we broke to go over for the anthems, and he goes, "They're on our side." I was like, "They're what?" He said, "They're on our side. They're disrespecting us." And I was like, "What are we going to do?" I was like, "Oh no." This is really not a problem that I want to have right now. So I'm trying to think. The mouse is running in my head to coming up with options. So I think we can go over that side. We can stand in front of them and risk a dig in the head. We can stand behind them and behind him. I won't be seen behind him. Or we can stand to the left of them on our side. So that was, I suppose, the Switzerland, the neutral idea that we'd go to where we belong, but yet ultimately, not where we're meant to be. And the president was going to dirty her knee-high boots that she was wearing that day, but that was something that we were willing to accept if Jono was willing to accept it.
Look. You actually like your presidents, don't you? You generally, as politicians,
hugely popular.
It's hugely popular.
Yeah.
I mean, if it had been an English politician, but she's not a politician, I guess, is she? She's above that.
The nitty gritty of that. Yeah. So anyway, that was that. It's amazing. I had no idea there was that level of kind of doubt in your mind. I suppose it's only natural. Like, in a weird way, you had this incredible persona where you'd never look to me ever to have any doubt. You always looked like the daddy of the group and the alpha male. And I was even surprised. I saw a quote from you.
Yeah, but you're putting on. Part of that is
to put on
where you have to get to,
yeah.
and what you're doing. You're out there now in the arena, aren't you? So we're not going to show anything because we got 50,000 Irish people going crazy. So I just thought, what's going to happen, and but I knew we weren't going to move, and ultimately it is difficult to make people move, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it was one of those, and then it went so quickly, and we were playing the game, and it was a bloody difficult game, and at the end we were just relieved to win, And if you'd have seen when we got back to London on the Monday morning, the bus as it pulled into our hotel. If you'd have got on the bus, I remember thinking, if you got on the bus, what would you think? You'd think these boys had lost. We were knackered, exhausted mentally from the whole thing because it was a big moment, and we knew it was a stepping stone. It was a stepping stone that year because there was other things to try and do.
Which you went on to do that year. The quote I was going to read out, by the way, which struck me, was you were talking about how there's a bundle of emotions to deal with before I go out and play: anxiety, anticipation, fear. And you talked about even sometimes being on the bus and looking out and thinking, bloody hell, I wouldn't mind being on the other side of this glass. And you went through all those same cliche things that a lot of players talk about. I never had you down as one of those types.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everyone's human. I mean, everyone's human. I played with guys who didn't get any nerves, and I couldn't understand that. They didn't get a lot of nerves, and they just turn up. But I would worry if I wasn't nervous.
Okay.
You need to have, for me, have that anxiety to perform, get the adrenaline going. I was nervous before we trained. You have an edge of anticipation before you train because you've got to perform and you've got to do well. So I think part of being experienced is you learn to know where you should be, where those should be during the week, and how to just switch it off a little bit. I remember we came over on the Thursday, had Friday off in Dublin. I think the B team played the Friday night before that game and got beaten at Donnybrook. And Andy Robinson, I didn't go to the game. Andy Robinson, we're having a Friday off, right? So we're just not thinking about rugby as much as we can. You can never not think about it, but just totally relax mentally, because then Saturday you sort of build up for Sunday. Andy Robinson, our coach, got back on the Friday night, and we're just sitting around having a cup of chocolate or whatever. And he was steam coming out of his ears. We lost on Friday. It was like, Andy, it's Friday. You got to relax, mate. We'll play Sunday. You got to build yourself up for it. You can't Can't spend all week being in that zone because you'd fry yourself, you know.
This, I mean, 03 then ultimately finished in a World Cup win in amazing circumstances. We have the video here. My laptop has crashed, fellas, so I won't be able to type through where we're going next. Yeah. So, well, this is the drop kick, the drop that everyone remembers.
5 seconds to go. This is the one. It's coming back for Johnny Wilkinson. He drops for World Cup glory. Yes! It's up. It's over. He's done it.
There's one person applauding there. Well done.
It's a regulation drop goal, right? Most people in this room could hit that drop goal.
Stony silence in the room.
But it's true. It's you know, as an actor hitting that drop goal, most of our team could probably hit it. But when you're in those situations, it's the pressure, isn't it? The pressure becomes all encompassing. Performing in tournaments is all about dealing with the pressure. International rugby, when you guys come in, you explain to them how different it is. And it's not so much even the actual playing, it's the dealing with the whole week, isn't it? There's so much more media, there's so much more intensity to everything you're doing. And you can't help think about that game and how big it is at the weekend. And it's difficult to get away from it. So when you're at a tournament like that, and we had such a difficult tournament, every game we were behind and there was something going on, you know, the criticism from our own media, Australian media, the Samoa game when we had 16 players on for 30 seconds, we were going to get kicked out of the tournament. But it was great in a way because you're never comfortable. You know, we were 10-3 down to Wales in a quarter-final. I mean, that was horrendous. You're walking off at Brisbane to a team, we'd sent the second team down to Cardiff and had beaten them by 30 points in August in a warm-up game. You're 10-3 down, facing the biggest disaster in English rugby history, certainly, and maybe English sporting history, to lose a game like that. So, but it was great. In hindsight, it was great. We were never happy. We were never comfortable. Always a lot of angst about. And it wasn't until the semi-final, really, the week before the semi-final, because France had played great, hadn't they? They'd beaten you in the quarters. I remember warming up for our quarter against Wales, and it was on the big screen. And you're trying to warm up, but you're looking at the big screen, thinking, "Wow, they're playing well." So everyone had written us off in our own press for the semi-final, and it was perfect because, again, we just said, "Look, we win this game by a point. You're where you want to be in the World Cup final." And you know, France are good, but we know how to beat them, and we can, we're confident we can do that if we play well. So it was just simple. It became very simple from that point, where it had been very, very complicated. It actually became very simple. Just go and win a game of rugby, and then win another one. And I think if you can ever, when you're in those sort of games, if you can ever just put it put it in that place mentally, just go and find a way to win the match, not think about what it's all about. Because a World Cup final, a Lions final test, a European Cup final, Grand Slam deciders.
I don't know so much about Lions final tests.
But you play 01, you played 01. They're all games, aren't they? They're all games. And actually, when you first play in them, they're almost too big to play because it's what I've watched. But actually, when you've been done a few, you get to that point. We had a very experienced team. They're just games of rugby. It's just a rectangle. I got into 5 minutes of the World Cup final. I remember this thought jumped into my head. This just feels like a test match.
So that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
What are you feeling in that last sequence of play, trying to get to that drop goal opportunity? Because you got to fire a shot. So are you feeling totally calm? Because as a rugby player, I think it's so much more comfortable being out in the park than being a substitute or being a fan in the stand, because you have a say. Yeah. You have a say in what happens, and you're living that moment. Is it any different in a World Cup final?
No.
In injury or in extra time?
I think the good thing is we just had that experience to put it in the right place. If I'd have been watching that, I'd have been physically sick. I'd have been physically sick watching that. I wouldn't have been able to watch it. So, but to be out there, we were up again with 90 seconds to go, and they equalised. So at that point, you've got no control over what he does. Flatley was kicking brilliantly. So we're having a discussion about the line out and the kick-off and just getting the detail right at that moment about what we're going to do. Because if you start going, this is the World Cup, this is the World Cup, and the boys will be like, I know it's we know it's the World Cup, but what are we going to do? So you have to be able to just, and fair play to Clive, we spent a lot of time just talking about that, being in control, making the right decisions at the right time. And we have a choice. We're going to kick off. We either go long, try and put them under pressure, or go short and retain the ball. And I remember one of the guys came up to me and said, "No, we need to go short, retain the ball. I said, no, we go long, they'll kick it out. They're going to kick it out. The last minute of a World Cup final. If they don't, they run it, I'm fine, we'll defend. So we try to get pressure on the kick through Lewis Moody, just tell them to just get pressure on the kick. And then talking to Steve Thompson about what line-out we're going to have, and Ben Kay, because he called the line-outs, what line-out are we going to have? And Steve, it's the little human interactions that people don't realise that need to take place. Steve had missed a few, the youngest, least experienced player in the team, the hooker. He didn't want to throw a long ball. You could see it in his face. And Benny, me and Ben just said to him, look, mate, you throw it, and if it goes wrong, we'll take responsibility. It's not your fault. Just give him that assurance. If you ever watch the last line out, which I'm sure none of you ever will, and why would you? You've got far better things to do. As Tomo's thrown it, the camera pans to Ben Kay, and he's just looking him in the eye and going, mate, it's all right, just throw the ball. And, off you go. So, any act in rugby, any great try is made up of all the individual parts, the fundamental skills, catch, pass. But they become so bloody difficult under pressure. And Matt's made the break. I mean, Matt Dawson was a genius there. He made the break out of nothing to get us in position. And this is going to sound very sort of corny, cliche, but it's absolutely true. After he made the break, he's obviously at the bottom of the ruck. The ball comes out, and Neil Back is there to play 9. And the whole thing seemed to stop and pause because Backy didn't know whether to pass now, and no one did anything. And I was quite a long way away, and I just thought, God, don't mess it up now. We're just right. So I just ran a sort of inside line, not to get across Wilco, and I just tried to look at Backy and say, just pass the ball one more time. Just relax, pass the ball one more time. And it wasn't it was back here a little bit, but suddenly catching the ball, a thing you'd do unthinking 1,000 times a week, becomes, don't drop it, it's the world. But you just got to do it and give the guy one more chance, because the kick, the whole thing's regulation, but the pressure is huge. And the great thing, we'd practiced that because we'd been to France in a warm-up game and got into the same position, and the boys suddenly went off to the left-hand side and then tried a drop kick, and it all went pear-shaped, and we lost the only game we lost. So it was in our minds a bit that just stay in front of the sticks and give the guy. If we'd done that 3 times in the second half, we'd have won with that extra time. But sometimes you need that clarity to just go and do it.
That's absolutely fascinating hearing all of that, how it goes in the pitch. No, it is. It's really amazing. And you're too modest to say, but you did catch the ball and you did make another crucial few
I didn't make any yards because...
Well, you'd made a few.
No, but I actually didn't want to go into contact, because if they'd have been smart, they'd have let me go through a gap and isolated me. So I didn't want to get isolated. So I went down soft as... I didn't want to go in a big bustling run and make 5 yards and get picked off. So I actually go down... the yard's not important. It's the getting this thing set up. So I actually went down really, really soft, and just almost to give my guys a chance to be there closer.
And you were at the bottom of that pile of bodies that Wilkinson was kicking over because you'd carried. Was your vantage point him, or could you see the posts?
I saw it go in my head, but I knew it was over. And then we're just thinking, get back and catch the kickoff, because this thing's gone to they've equalised too many times, and Andre Watson, the referee, seemed to like a close game, so just get back, catch the ball, because you can play on forever, can't you? It doesn't stop with the whistle, just catch it. And the great thing, the guy who caught the kickoff, we were a little bit disorganised, was our loose head prop. He jumped in the air. He's a very, very skillful guy, Trev Woodman. Unfortunately got injured pretty soon afterwards, but great player. He jumped that high off the air and caught the ball above his head. Incredible catch.
We're going way over time here, so we'll zip through.
I did go on about that. 2 hours of
I think it was our 18 questions about 03, to be honest. Apologies. Clive Woodward, the perception from the outside is he revolutionised things. He had doing eye training on laptops, and the word was that only Jolly Wilkinson was the one who actually did it. So, what was the secret? Did Clive do amazing things, or was this just a gifted group and Clive absolutely was a part of it?
Yeah, it's anything I've been involved with, Lions tours, whatever, everyone's got a slightly different perception on what happened and how it happened and why it happened. So we had a good group of players, experienced by the time we got there. But Clive, what he wanted to do was create an elite group, which is what it's easy to say. So he was all about providing the best for the team in everything you could do, coaching, kit, blah, 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 all those things. Which with the RFU, you know, they've got a few quid, you can do certain things. A lot of the other bits, you know, there's a bit of window dressing there, and coaches like to see, you know, all coaches like to be seen to be the cleverest and the smartest and all the rest of it. Ultimately, the thing that doesn't probably get talked about, which is the most important, is the human element of it. I think our relationship as a group, how we operate with the coaches. We went through some pretty rough times, losing in '99. We went on strike in 2000, which was a very, very stressful week of our lives. But actually, I think, from my take, it was one of the most important things that we did as a group, because we stuck together as a team, and our relationship with our coaches improved dramatically. We weren't, I think Clive could be a little bit dictatorial at that point, and we were a group that had been there, the experienced guys before him, before professionalism, where the players ran the team. When I got in the England team, the players ran the team 80%. The coach was there, but it was a different dynamic than it is now. You know, the Brian Moores and Rob Andrews and Will Carlings and those guys ran the team. So we'd come from that a lot more than maybe the professional coaches wanted to be. But you find a way to work. You basically find a way that works for us, how we operate. And that's not about tactics, because the tactics can change. The strategy can change. I don't care how we play to win. And that team could play, whatever people think of it, could play a number of different ways. You know, we've got the 2001, we scored more points and tries than probably that record may never be broken, but we didn't win the championship. So it's about winning. It's about winning, and we found a way to win different games in different ways, and very deep, experienced group. So it wasn't a difficult team to captain in many ways.
I can imagine. So Clive played his part, but there is an element of window dressing. So like the eye training tests and changing the jerseys and all this stuff, less important, even if it's what's almost remembered.
So, sometimes some of it is psychological. You think, if we've got time to think about eye training, because we've got everything else sorted, you know, our defence is good, our attacking game's okay, so we've got time to think. These other teams haven't got time to think about that because they're still conceding 25 points a game. So, in a weird way, even if you didn't do it, it can create something where you think, actually, wow, these, you know, our guys have got time to think about these little bits. And the reality of the eye training is actually quite simple. You're just training the muscles in your eye like you would any other muscles. You know, it's not. When they explain it to you, it's actually quite a practical thing to do. Did I want to do it at age 33 when you're slogging your guts out every day for an hour on the laptop? No, because I'm near the end of my career. It's a longer term fix than I probably had. So my decision was, I need to be full of enthusiasm come 9:30 tomorrow morning when I go and train. Do I want to do 2 hours on the laptop from 8 till 10? No. But you know, that's my decision. That's fine. And what you do on the field is what you're judged on. So Clive trusted us as a group of senior players. And if we go to him, he loved an idea. Clive liked to bring new and different. He's a salesman. That's great, because there's always something going on. And sometimes you were with him in 2005, and I said to you before, sometimes he needs that guy to say, you know, a third of the ideas are great, a third of the ideas need a bit of change, and a third of the ideas you can't, you know. But he would listen to us. You know, ultimately he would listen to us, and he loved the feedback, and he'd go, right, you know, this is what we're doing, because if it's you and the coaches, that's one thing, and if you're all together and trying to get there, that's a different thing. It's far more powerful, and we don't care whose idea it is, what type of rugby we're going to play. We'll just do what's most effective on this given day to win the game. And if you've got that, you know, Saturday for Ireland, they win, they get a grand slam, they lose, it'll be a huge disappointment. So you've got to find a way to win a game, and the weather's looking good, but it could rain. All those things can change at any one minute. You have to adapt, basically.
By signing up to HeinekenRugbyClub.com, you can experience money can't buy prizes, I should tell you, backstage stadium tours, exclusive events like this one tonight, so you can all join Heineken Rugby Club today. I think you'll agree that was fascinating, and he's completely won us over. Martin Johnson, everybody. Now, before even warmer the second time around. They're really taken to their hearts. Before you run off, and there is time to do that, just hang on 1 second, because Adrian Barry is back to pass on. Well, I'm not sure why you're back, Adrian, but you're back.
Not to slag you, Joe, now that you're here, it turns out. You can make off your way off the stage if you want. Everybody give it up for Martin Johnson again. Thanks very much. You've been brilliant. We're going to get you back in a while, so it'll be fine. I have the happy duty, if you just want to sit tight for about a minute, to tell you who our finalists for the crappy quiz later on, who are going to join us on stage with the possibility to win some Champions Cup tickets and to give a couple of free pints as well. So we've had some good tweets in over the last little while, so I've just selected some of these at random. Gareth McKeown, where are you? Gareth McKeown, are you there? He's gone to the Jacks, is he? If you're there, come over here. We've got some Heineken representatives to give you some free beer. He tweeted, Martin, tell us what really happened in that fight between Brian and Austin Healy. So we might do that in part 2. We've also got a free beer for Paul Dolan, who just tweeted in a pretty cool pic. Paul, if you're out there, make your way over to the side door here. Isol Cody, who tweets, finally get to cheer Martin Johnson in Dublin without getting judged. And that's the free beers, I think, for the minute. But the other thing I want to do is... actually, Conor Cronin as well, who says, whatever about the red carpet, what's up with Brian's hair in that video? So, Conor, for that brilliant quip, you've got yourself free beer. None of you, however, have got the chance to come up and join us on stage for the crappy quiz. That honour goes to, firstly, Darren McMahon. Are you there? Darren McMahon, good man, fair play to you. You tweeted us once, this is weird by the way, once served Brian O'Driscoll and the Irish rugby team before a big game in Twickenham a few years back in Clonmel. What were they doing in Clonmel? They were in Clonmel Rugby Club apparently a week before. This is the kicker here. He was always the last out of bed, somehow you know that. The power went and I stood in his precious slippers. Apologies. That's weird, and for its weirdness you've been rewarded by the opportunity to win some Champions Cup tickets. Give it up for Darren, everyone. And the second finalist, actually we've sort of broken the rules slightly here to announce the second finalist. This is from the Green Chair, so if you've given your story to the Green Chair, we've broken the rules slightly because it's a joint venture by two people who I don't think were aware we're telling the exact same story, Conan McGonigal and Phelan McGlynn. They're all in the same row, this is ridiculous. Good stuff, lads. Can you three just make your way over here, we'll get your details and tell you when to come back and all of that good stuff. Join us again in about 15 minutes, we'll be back for part 2. Everybody, how are we doing? You're still here, woo! Good stuff. Some of you are still alive. How are we doing? That's a little bit more like it. We've got an amazing part 2 upcoming for you, so thanks for your patience there in the infill with a slight technical glitch that we're well over. But we are with our friends in Heineken Rugby Club and for the chance to get up close and personal with some huge rugby names, some of whom you've seen here tonight at events just like this. Make sure you sign up at HeinekenRugbyClub.com today. The good news is that Eddie Jones has apologised, by the way, so I'm assuming that totally takes a sting out of it, right? That we're on an even footing again. We've got a great second panel upcoming for you, but if you can put your hands together for panel 1, who are coming back onto the stage, for Joe Molloy, Martin Johnson and Brian O'Driscoll, everybody.
Thanks everyone for your patience. You're very welcome back. So we are, as you know, here with thanks to Heineken Rugby Club to get member-only benefits such as tickets, event invites, discount codes, and much more. Join HeinekenRugbyClub.com now. So we have a game to build up to, as I'm sure you are aware. So to do that, two men who know how to win at Twickenham. First, a former British and Irish line and Irish international for guts of a decade, slightly over a decade. And secondly, a man who knows how to coach a winning team at Twickenham and plenty more besides. So a warm welcome, please, Nick Popplewell and Eddie O'Sullivan, everyone! You're very welcome. Eddie, you're very welcome. How you doing?
Nice job.
Nick, we've already heard from you in some depth.
I had to wait a long time to get here. I must say, sorry lads, an hour and a half of listening to Jono now, in fairness, I'd say was... And as he said himself, can you believe I talked a half an hour about a fucking drop goal? Before I start, I have to say, is my mum here? Are you there? Is your friend Margaret there? Watch your handbag, Margaret. Dr. Molloy, are you there? Hello? Mick Molloy? Fuck him. Yeah, there you go, John. He fixed my young fella's foot last year when he broke it, so I said I'd say hello to him, but
Anything else?
Oh, if I scratched your lovely Range Rover when I parked my Mondeo, I apologise.
Trust me, it's not mine. I own mine as much as Jono owns his.
Anyway, on that happy note, you're not here to talk about anyone else. Anyone got any houses in Rosslare to sell? If you have, give me a ring or email me because I have a few punters looking for one. Anyway, back to the serious stuff.
Martin, when you were called up to the Lions in 1993 as a young, inexperienced, not professional, even amateur in New Zealand, was Nick a welcoming presence?
You didn't have a clue who I was now, in fairness. I didn't have a clue who you were, actually.
Yeah, that would be more to the point. I can't really remember. I remember...
Yes would be sufficient.
Yeah, Nick was great. Nick was very special.
Up to me or down at me as a fatherly figure, in fairness, yeah. No.
Were, to be fair, you played some great rugby that tour.
Thank you very much.
You played very, very well.
You were brilliant as well. No, you were
I was.
There you are.
And we won a test with Nick and 7 Englishmen in the pack, didn't we?
Say it again?
We won the second test with you and 7 Englishmen. I think you said afterwards it was nice of them to invite me. But he did play bloody well on that tour.
There you are there after the second test. Oh, we can get that photo back up in the dressing room.
Scary.
All looking very
Please
young
do.
and
Leave
happy.
it up
There you are.
Oh, Christ. Drinking still, yeah, probably.
That
was a good old trip, actually. I organised with the lads in Heineken to deliver us drink at every spot. So we used to have 4 or 5, I think, kegs of Beamish, Beamish Murphy's came over and 4 or 5, do you remember that? We had an abundance of drink.
I was...
different culture, different times, you know, did I kind of...
I was trying to... They were do you ever play at the old Athletic Park, Wellington?
No. Pre-cake tin.
Yeah. That was the
but
most
they hate
dilapidated changing rooms in the
but I
stadium
mean,
of all time.
they hate playing there themselves, don't they? I think.
It was, but it was a great day.
But I mean, you talk about the memories of when we played in Twickenham hundreds of thousands of years ago. God knows how we won, but we did win. I don't know, whatever. But Clom, I remember just being in the change rooms afterwards. Did you have baths at that stage? Was there baths?
When you won in '94, I'm trying to... Yes, it was the old West Stand, wasn't it? It was the old West Stand.
So I remember having a case of Heineken. I'd say 20 carols, and I was in one bath, and Chloe was in the other bath, and it was just... We were just saying, no phones. If you had your little phone now, you'd be there and you'd be Donald Duck, but no. Different times.
They moved the baths. I don't know if they're still there now. They've redone the change rooms, but the original tin baths went into the new West Stand when they did that. The old baths.
Baths were brilliant because you actually used to try and get off early to get a bath, didn't you? You'd say,
ooh, there's only 6 or 7.
Bit of a twinge.
But when they built the new West Stand, Jason was still in the building game, and he was stopped leaving with a couple on the back of his Jason Leonard, a couple on the back of his truck. It's nice that they kept that.
We were just actually saying earlier on how the game has changed, and I remember I don't remember anything, but I remember about 2 weeks ago I was at a Heineken do with Jerome from Heineken and Claw.
Could you say Heineken anymore in a sentence? Is it it's punctuation?
Punctuation, yeah.
Full stop.
And we were at this do, and I could see, you know, when you're in a bar and somebody's kind of giving you the eye and say, Jesus, something's up here. And I could see Claude getting a bit agitated. He was even smoking more than usual. And eventually this fella came up to the two of us and said, you wouldn't fucking make it nowadays, the two of you. And I could see Claude getting ready here for an old... who was the headbutt? Who did the headbutt in Munster? It wasn't Jerry Flannery, the other chap?
No, before that.
Yeah.
Frankie.
Anyway, Frankie Sheehan. So I said to Claude, now calm down here. I said, let's talk this through because, you know, we were always into analytics and stuff. So we said, okay, so why wouldn't we be good now? I said, you know, the hardest thing you do on a pitch, a rugby pitch, is scrummage. We used to have about 30 fucking scrums, didn't we? Now there's 6. Line outs you couldn't lift, now you're up. Rucks now, you don't go into a bloody ruck, do you? You might go into 3 or 4. You've all the props done, all these pods, 1 pod, 2 pod, and there you go. Just make a tackle if somebody runs at you. And the biggest thing of all, you only have to play for 50 minutes and take you off. Yeah. 80 minutes we had to play. Didn't we? I know I'm being flippant, but in fairness, in our day, we were brilliant for 50 minutes. If you look, you reel back the years and stuff. And who was our fucking fitness coach? You were.
What was he like to coach, Eddie?
Impossible.
Quite appalling. I remember at the start of the fitness, we were all told to go to UCD and bring spikes, right? Spikes, 19 fucking stone in spikes, right? And you had Brian Rigney, who was probably 23 stone in spikes. So not only were you probably fracturing your feet, Brian Rigney used to, if anyone remembers, you wouldn't remember Brian Rigney, but Brian Rigney would run like that. Remember that?
He sold advertising on his
And he'd fucking catch you going around the corner in UCD on the track.
He always got a lane.
Bloody stitches.
He always got a lane. Nobody got to his lane.
Anyway, I think we're going to win now. Sorry, back to the, obviously. I think we'll probably put one by on Saturday.
The way,
hopefully.
well, I think Ireland have played well, haven't they? They've been. But if you look at, when we were just talking earlier, the games have all been close, or they could have gone another way. But Ireland have just found a way to win.
Well, you look back out exactly small margins. France, we should have won it, or we did win it. We could have lost it. It would have been a travesty. A couple of passes, Scotland and Wales, different kettle of fish. You know, in my lack of knowledge on back play, but it was. I mean, that's where our weakness is, I presume, is it?
Here, Brian, come on, we go.
Leave them to it.
Oh, sorry.
No, work away. Can I just jump in for 1 second though? Just one.
Sorry.
Just one.
I beg your pardon.
Eddie, you were on the show on Monday, and you're genuinely very worried about this game in a big, big way.
Yeah, I am, because the bigger thing for me is I think England can't afford to lose this game. And as Martin talked earlier about just having to win the game, a game they have to win, because if they lose on Saturday, it's their worst Six Nations since 2006. The team have been regressing during the championship in their performances. They have issues in their back row, their midfield, and you know the plan for winning the World Cup looks very shaky if they lose on Saturday.
I found myself in the unusual position of cheering England on Saturday evening, because I felt if they won that game, they wouldn't be as angry as now the team that we're going to come across. It's funny, the difference between they didn't manage to get it done right at the end versus, you know, scoring and beating the French, knocking the conversion over. You know, they still played poorly, but the perception and their sense of feeling going out this coming Saturday would have been vastly, vastly different. They are properly wounded, and if they can get a little bit more accurate and bring that, you know, mental frustration that they should have back to Twickenham, it'll be a pretty difficult day at the office for us.
Yeah, that is the worry. I mean, you made the point as well on Monday. It can paper over all the cracks, this kind of, we can't be beaten. Whatever way we have to go about it, whatever, you know, screw tactics and technique and everything, just we can't be beaten is a very dangerous thing in rugby.
It's going to be a mental headset for England that this is a massive game for them. So in some ways, it'll define their year. If this goes south, then the next time they really get to address this is in November. And nobody's going to worry too much about what happens in the summer. It's not the same resonance. And it's a long time to stew over something like this, like a championship that was, everyone thought at the start it's going to come down to Ireland and England next Saturday, but England aren't even close. It's over. No one predicted Ireland would go to Twickenham as champions. I think that trajectory England now are on, they've got to live with that for the next 6 months. And the only way they can kind of get some lift out of that is to win on Saturday. They can always point, well, we beat Ireland in Twickenham, and Ireland are the team to beat at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that gives them a little bit of breathing space until they pitch up again in November.
Martin, for you, what's going wrong with England at the moment?
We were just talking earlier. I mean, we beat Italy and we have Wales, which was another big game that they had to win. We started off brilliant. We scored 2 tries, and then we sort of, it was a wet day, and we sort of, okay, we'll just kick the ball in the corners now. And we haven't really been awake since then. You know, we scored 12 points in 20 minutes, and we didn't score for an hour. We ended up winning 12-6 in the game. I'm getting very nervous at the end of. I'm thinking, let's just put over 3 points, drop a goal, just get away with a win here. We didn't really manage the end of that very well, and just got very sort of, okay, we'll kick the ball. And it was like the 2015 World Cup game, where they got a lead and thought, we'll just defend it. And it's difficult to get out of that mindset once you're in it and get back into the attacking. I almost wanted Wales to score that try that was disallowed, because it would have spurred England into having to play a bit more. We go to Scotland and just make the terrible mistake of not coming out for the first half, really, and mentally not being there, and Scotland being absolutely revved up to the eyeballs. That was 40 minutes I'll never forget. Came out with a better attitude in the second half, but weren't accurate and good enough to score a try quickly, but couldn't get the next score to put Scotland under pressure. And you never thought we were going to win that game with 20 minutes to go. And the same in Paris. I didn't think even at the end we were going to find a way to win it, because we just hadn't been good enough with the ball. Our attacking game, you know, I was saying to Eddie, in the first half, our line out was good, put them under pressure, kept us in the game. Scrum penalties kept us in the game, where their turnovers kept them in the game. 9-9 before half time, we have a chance probably we have a scrum in their half. I'm thinking, just manage the game, get 3 points here if we can, try a drop goal, go in with the lead. Our attacking game's not working. We try and run the ball, they nearly score. I mean, their best attack was us having the ball in the first half. So we need to, you know, when you're attacking, you're generally always trying to go with pace and be quick. To get that, you need good set piece, good start, over the gain line, quick ball, and that builds from there. If you're not getting any of that, it's very difficult then to generate it. And if you add into that, we're not doing well on the breakdown, the whole thing just...
Ultimately, for me, that's it. Their accuracy at the breakdown is killing them.
But we're not getting good carry before that to get the
fair enough,
good breakdown. But you're absolutely
they're not
right.
getting advantage line like maybe they did in games and over the last 18 months. But I think their clarity as to who they're cleaning out at the breakdown, the viciousness that they're bringing is nothing on what it was for the first year of Eddie's tenure.
They're losing their shape and attack. There was a telly moment last week against France where Bastro got over a ball at a ruck, and the guy that tried to clean him out was George Ford. So it was like flying a windshield, no chance. And penalty. The big moments like that in games, you know. And why is your 10 trying to clean out? Like, that shouldn't happen. So I think they started the championship in pretty good shape, but they've unravelled as the championship's gone on in terms of how they're playing. And they have big problems in the back row. They've now 2 injuries on top of that. I think we have a better back row on the field. I think we have a better midfield. They don't know who their outside centre is. Is it Ben Teo? You know, is it Jonathan Joseph? You know, that's something that he hasn't fixed. Maybe he's got Farrell at 12 because he needs Farrell at 12 to manage that midfield, because he's at 10. And he's probably better at 10. The midfield isn't going to function at all. So there's all those things going on there. And if Ireland get ahead on Saturday, I wouldn't back England to come back. Now, if England get ahead, it's a different ballgame. But that's going to be crucial.
I think the other thing is that Ireland have given opportunities to their opposition so far in the Six Nations, and if England are clinical, their firepower is probably the most impressive in their back three. You look at Johnny May, you look at Watson. I don't know whether Elliot Daly's going to be fit or not. So if you give those guys opportunities, they'll put them away. So that's going to be the big telling point as to whether they can create them, because they've created nothing in the last two games.
But if they
they've looked so blunt, and
if they can find a way to get the ball to those outside channels against us, we could have problems, because we've had problems right through the championship out there. Yeah. And you know, we'd be peppering over the cracks to say we haven't. Like, we've dodged a few bullets last week and against Wales, and Italy got us. So it's an area that worries me, and England should be targeting those areas to go after and see if we fixed it.
There's a tweet from Bob Dwyer, who's here somewhere, says the hashtag for OTBHRC should be hashtag the Nick Popplewell show, which I think is a fair point. Let's get Nick back in the game here. You were part of an Irish team.
You should have brought me on a bit longer then, shouldn't you?
Yes.
The only reason I'm saying so much now is if I got about 10 minutes.
You were you were part of an Irish team that had a tough decade in the 90s, but
dreadful.
Dreadful is maybe the better word, yeah. But
appalling.
Appalling is another good word, yeah. But did beat England in '93 in Dublin, which probably got you on that Lions tour in some respects. You would have been there anyway, before you say anything.
No, I wouldn't have been.
Okay. And then '94, you went to Twickenham and won there. What's your big memory of that?
Big memory there, I'd say, was Simon Gagan's try, which I set up, frankly, obviously. If you remember, we had a scrum, I think, on the right-hand side. We were playing that way.
It's going to take half an hour.
No, it won't. I'll say it very quickly. We had a scrum, right, scrum. R put in. I grabbed Skinner. Remember that fucker with the long hair?
Munch.
But the original Munch.
He would have been in the crowd in '94. He wasn't playing.
He was definitely second.
No,
Who was playing wing forward then?
That day was Backy. He had long hair.
Wasn't
he was
him,
short
no.
blonde. And
Who was the other side?
Tim Robber.
Robert, that was
maybe.
it.
Rodber, yeah.
No, Robert was number 8.
No, he played blindside, didn't he? Because Dean was injured that day. He didn't play.
Okay.
Backy played.
Anyway, that's irrelevant. Anyway, sorry, I know they're getting bored here. Whoever, anyway, obviously, I stopped the wing forward getting out. So apparently, I created the space. Is what
Hand of Popplewell.
And Gagan only had to run about 60 or 70 metres to score the try, which was easy.
The hand of Popplewell.
That was it, yeah. But in fairness, the only times we ever used to beat England was when, I mean, in our day, Dean Richards was the talisman, and then you took over that job. But for some reason, they never seemed to be that cohesive when the likes of Dino wasn't there, frankly.
He was a big part of that team.
They used to be able to slow the whole thing down and dictate the speed.
We missed
slow
him.
it down even further, should I say?
Let's talk about the next year when we came over. Do you remember that game? You played in that one in '95.
I don't. Funny that I don't remember. Do you know something? I only ever remember.
You never remember the ones that we...
I never remember the 60 or 70 games I lost. I remember the 4 that we won.
We came out for that game, and it was so windy, people couldn't actually stand still for the anthems. They were getting blown around.
Oh.
And you talk about Dean. We played into the wind.
And you have a problem with anthems and stuff like that. Yeah.
And Rob Andrew was playing 10. He said to us, guys, it was so windy, he said, I can't kick the ball. And we had Dean Richards, and he literally stuffed up his jumper. We mauled. I think we scored 2 tries against the wind, and it was Dean at his best. You could maul. That's what no one can do in the game anymore. Is maul from open field. He could just stand there, didn't go for, but boom, you could build a base on him, and we just kept the ball.
Wasn't the use it or lose it lot then as well?
Yeah.
Once you're going forward, you got the feed into the scrum.
Yeah.
You could set them all again from the scrum, and off you went again.
We just mauled you to death.
That's why use it or lose it came in.
Well, it's a different way to play the game, which no one can do now. No one plays the game on their feet, do they? If you think about it, everyone's on the floor with a ruck. So
really, myself and Claude would have an old chance now.
Shot.
And you're dumbfounded now, aren't you? Because you have this huge list of questions.
No. Talk away. In '94, would you go into a game at Twickenham thinking you even have a snowball's chance in hell of winning, or are you quietly confident, or what was the vibe around that time?
You'd never go into a game thinking you're going to lose, but we lost most of the time, I suppose. But I'm trying to think who was I up against. Victor Abugas, and that was always listen, you don't know. It's how it goes, and you had a good crowd, and we went through. We never. There was no expectation when we played. You just expected to lose all the time, frankly, weren't you? So.
And did that bother you?
No pressure.
Did that bother you? It sounds very
you kind of got used to it after 10 years, in fairness,
So, would you do a kind of banging the table beforehand, let's go out and give it to him, or was there almost
to be all that, in fairness, to be a few Munster lads there, and you'd have Claw there trying to G it up and scalp the odd person in the first 5 or 6 minutes. And,
Allegedly. But deep down, you kind of knew we're up against it here, we're probably going to lose.
Sure, we're always up against it.
Yeah, and that was the way it was.
I think there'd be a fear factor as well going to Twickenham, that if it went wrong, it could go spectacularly wrong. And it has on occasions, even up as far as my first season, we beat Wales here, my first game. And then we're saying, we're off to the races. But the races were in Twickenham. We were just behind the post most of the day. Remember that, Brian? We got torn to shreds in that game, And there was always that, if you had a bad day in Twickenham, it was a very bad day.
Yeah.
And there is that element of fear factor going there. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great motivator. in terms of keeping guys in the moment.
You had some great days there as a coach. Obviously, everybody remembers 04 and 06, Shane Horgan in 06. 04 was the first Triple Crown in 19, something like that.
85, was that the last?
85, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 2 amazing days. Before 04, that was the time you talked about giving the prawn sandwich brigade something to choke on. That quote.
I thought it was a throwaway remark, something that was just actually taking the piss out of Roy Keane with it. But Clive bit in a big way, and I was nervous the 24 hours before that. That 24 hours because I hadn't expected it to impact the way it did. So, I actually played crap that day. I don't know whether that had an impact on me in some way or just had an off day. But I remember at one point, Lawrence, who was captain of England that day, at the bottom of a ruck, throwing some shots in and making some reference to the Prawn Sandwich Brigade. I've been a lot smarter on my Friday press conferences since then. You try and... I think sometimes you have to be careful where occasionally you get a bit bored or you feel as though you're there to amuse people, but it doesn't benefit you in any way. And we were lucky. We had great team performance. Even though I was very poor, Gordon Darcy ripped it up. It was really his break onto the scene. He was Six Nations Player of the Year. He was outstanding, and I wouldn't quite say he won it single-handedly, but he had multiple breaks, and we managed to get it done. I think we probably caught them on the hop. It's their first game back after the World Cup. Maybe they were still celebrating it. Maybe they thought, we might be a soft touch. I suppose that's when you're at your most vulnerable. They were also missing a number of their World Cup winning players, including your man here and Johnny Wilkinson, amongst others. So, it was a big moment for us, though, to go over there and win against, win in Twickenham, which was notoriously hard place to go and play at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it always is, regardless of how things are going, I presume, Eddie. What are your strongest memories of 04 or 06?
04 was, I suppose, from a poaching point of view, I thought we defended really well that day, and it'd been something we've been working on so hard. It'd been a kind of an Achilles heel, and it was kind of, especially for Mike Ford, who was our defence coach, it was a huge thing to him that we went to Twickenham and we defended so well, because we had to defend for the last 10 or 15 minutes, like England were coming in waves. There was that side of it as well. And I remember as well in 04, England were the world champions, and I was being a bit, I suppose, how would I put it, I was trying to start things up a little bit. Before the game, I suggested to the team that we might clap England on the field as the world champions, knowing that they'd be headed freeze over. But I didn't say anything. I said it at the team run, and I left it. And I remember I came back to the hotel that night, and you came to me and you said, listen, it's not going to happen. I said, oh, really? Why? And I said, I bet you I know who led the charge. And I said, Magsy almost lost it, the notion. So I kind of knew they were in the right place then, for that game. But that's the thing I remember about that. But again, it was...
Sorry to interrupt, we'll pick that up. Do you remember going to the lads and saying, Eddie wants to do this?
I think I probably just went to Magsy on his own. You go to the person where where you're most likely getting the answer that you're looking for. And I knew it wasn't... I don't think... It wasn't announced to the squad at the captain's meeting. I think I had a quiet word to one or two lads. And I knew myself, there's no way we can clap them out. It's just not the done thing. They've been loaded for the last number of months. Congratulations to them, but we don't need to butter them up anymore. So, it wasn't for us.
Quick now. Sorry, Eddie, you jump in there.
Well, I'd have been gutted if they did clap them out. So I was kind of relieved that that's what came back. But I had a feeling it would come back that way. But it was, it's about being in the right headspace. Yeah. And Twickenham, over years you get to different stadiums and you get to play them in big games and you're lucky. But there is a thing about Twickenham. It is a very, despite the size of it, a very claustrophobic stadium when it's full. It's like a bit like the Coliseum. You go in there's a wall of noise. The English supporters are very vocal. You get the Irish supporters as well. So you get that feeling. This is it. It's a big stage, and that can get to players. You've got to be really in the right headspace to go there and deliver well. If you play well, you have a chance. But if you play badly, it's no chance, and you might go very wrong. So there's that fear element that you want to overcome. It can't paralyze you, but you need to have it. And I just think it's a very, very tough place to go and get a result But it's a place when you get a result and it's a great sense of satisfaction because it's so hard to win there.
There's the famous shots of you when Horgan touches down in 06, laid on, almost just fist pumping. It's a huge moment.
Well, that 06 one was funny because I think Ben Cage just scored under the sticks, and it was like we ran a play after that and the ball went bounced into touch. And I was thinking, geez, mightn't be our day. You know, when things start to go a little bit pear-shaped. But I remember we got a scrum out, one of the 22. They knew we had to run, so they pushed both wings up. And then Rog put it over the top, and he got on the end of it. And he put Shaggy away. And the backstory to that is we played Australia in the World Cup in 03, and it was a 1-point game. And we had one shot at Australia in the last 2 minutes. And we got Shaggy away around the corner, and he took Wendell Sailor on the outside, and he got bundled into touch. And we never got the ball back. Australia ran the clock down, game over, we lost by a point. And if Shaggy had just kept in play, we'd have got upfield. And Humps had just missed a drop goal in Melbourne that night to beat Australia, went just the wrong side of the post. So, go forward to 06, Shaggy was in the same situation. And he didn't get put in touch. And I know Lewis Moody was tracking him, and he knew Moody was going to get him. Moody was fantastically quick for the open side. And he got Shaggy, but Shaggy got back in off the touchline, went to ground, and the guy that cleaned out the ruck, probably the only time in his life, was Rog. Got to that ruck, cleaned it out, and then he showed up, took the ball inside, we cleaned that, and then Stringer put that floater over the top to Shaggy, you know, and I suppose the fact that he was 6'4" and that reach got him down. But then what happened was a weird thing. I looked at the clock, and there was a minute 20 left, or a minute 25 left on the clock. So I sent a message in to tell Rog to milk the minute before he kicked the conversion. Like, don't kick it, like, just run it down. So he did that, and then he kicked the conversion, which is like, we needed that because it was a 5-point spread. And I then realised that he had to go to the TMO, that the TMO forgot to restart the clock. So there was like, the lads thought that there was like 20 seconds left, and there was a minute 20, but we couldn't get the message in. They kicked off, we caught it, did a little bit of a maul, and Stringer hoofed it into the stand, and the ref said, line out. And I went, oh shit. Like, because we thought the game was over, and they played through that, and they got another line out. And there was another, so it was actually 2 line outs. Eventually, we turned it over. But in things like that, you know, the clock just goes down to, like, every second takes a minute, and your mind, and you know yourself that in that level, one chance, and it's curtains. So
to Jono's point about the World Cup final and Trevor Woodman's catch on the restart, that restart for me, Simon Easterby caught it, an absolutely brilliant catch. We knew that they had to score a try. Rog had knocked over the conversion to make it. Was it a 4-point game then, or a 3-point game?
They needed a try.
Yeah. But I remember thinking, kickoffs are just such a huge part of the game now, particularly receiving kickoffs. If you've just scored, you've got to consolidate and make sure that the next play is outside of your own half, or you set. Worst place to be is conceding the ball or turning it over in your own 22 or on your own 40. So it was a brilliant piece of skill, great lift, but catch right above his head, right on the money. So that's kind of one of the moments that I think it's a real teammates appreciation.
It's forgotten by most of us.
Yeah, but it was such a vital component to that victory.
Nick, your last Irish game, or the last time you were part of an Irish squad, was at Twickenham?
At Twickenham, yeah.
I checked which early on because I was sure I'd misread it, that you left the stadium before the game.
Yeah, I got, who was the coach, that fucking clown from New Zealand? Who was he?
Murray Kidd.
Murray Kidd. So we came
Sorry,
together.
not that I know Murray Kidd, I just thought I knew he was from New Zealand.
I'd like to say on the record, Murray Kidd is not a clown.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, work away.
Cut that bit out anyway. He made us do a bleep test the Thursday before Saturday International, and I pulled a hamstring. I knew I was going to pull a hamstring because I had bloody hamstring problems for the previous year. So I knew I was gone, so I said, I'll go over for the trip anyway or whatever. I think they wanted to psych England out and say, oh yeah, Nick Popplewell is definitely going to be playing, So, no, that wasn't the reason. So then, I think the story goes, I helped rally him at the bags, put the gear in, and just... I had a ticket, I think, so I think I probably sold my ticket for 500 quid and went to the pub. I didn't really, no. But I just went out and watched, I had a couple of brothers in London at the time, so I just met them in a pub and just... I think when that was the time I knew that was it was gone. And it probably took me 3 years after that to probably sit down and watch an international, I'd say.
Why so long?
That's
why,
watching international on the telly, like.
Yeah, why did you not want to switch on the TV the next day?
Just had no appetite. I suppose I subconsciously thought I could still be playing, which was madness, obviously, because people would say you should have stopped playing 3 or 4 years previous. But that's just the psyche. You're in it for so long. I think it was too much. It was just.
Yeah.
In fairness, I probably went on for a couple of years too long.
What age were you then, Nick?
26, wasn't it?
Well, in fairness now, if you look at the programmes, my last 2 years, I went from being born in 64 to 65 to 66. And then George Spotswood asked me, he said, listen, something's wrong here, you can't be fucking getting younger. Would you bring in your birth certificate? So I said, listen, George, sorry, I made a mistake there. So. I was trying to get another contract with Newcastle, but again, in fairness.
So sorry, what age were you in Twickenham that last day?
Jesus, what age was that? What date was that? I was born in 64. So I'd say it was 30 or 31, was I?
Give or take, yeah.
Near enough, anyway.
We'll check the programme. And so you knew you were coming to the end, but were you injured to the point where you're like in your suit, or were you actually part of the? You weren't on the substitutes bench and took off. You were.
No, sure. No, because I think we had an extra prop over at that stage, didn't we?
Yeah. There was no subs that time, unless you were injured, wasn't it? That stage, you had to be injured to get on the field.
I thought we had brought over a couple of props. I was sure as fuck when I was over there. Yeah. So they knew I wasn't going to be playing.
Right, okay. And so it still strikes me as kind of odd to... I know your brothers are there, but you might see them afterwards. Should you not be staying in the stadium, support the team, say goodbye in your own weird way to Twickenham? No?
Why, like? Yeah, obviously, the reason you're talking about it doesn't sound kind of a normal thing to do, but listen, I was obviously disappointed that was it, and I just...
Yeah. So it was out of disappointment.
I was quite odd, in fairness.
Well, fair enough. But it was out of disappointment almost. I'm done, I want to be kind of away from it kind of a thing.
Yeah, sure, listen, I wasn't going to get a win bonus or a lose bonus or a match fee or whatever, so I was probably distraught.
Well, it's weird. When you're in a team, you're so close and you're in it. The moment you're not, even if you're out for a game, you feel so not part of it. If you're not playing the game, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah. And I know exactly how you feel, and I'd have been exactly the same. In that situation, I can remember probably more suspension than injury for me, not playing. and you're just, what do you do? You just might as well be gone because you're either in it, doing it, or you're not. And once you're not, it's time to go.
You're periphery. You're just a distraction. I think Woody, I presume you must have found it extremely difficult when you retired, did you?
Yeah, just on your point though as well, I think you forget a couple of years after you've retired about how terrible you felt towards the end, and you almost convince yourself, I could still be at this maybe, maybe I could do a job.
In fairness, I could talk, Jesus Christ, lads, fuck's sake, what's he after dropping that for? Sure, I would never have been there to try and catch it, do you know what I mean?
But you forget, for me, that final year, like I was battling so many demons about how I just simply wasn't able to do the things I once was able to, and it was such a frustration, and it was almost a case of trying to get out before I was found out, and I was exposed.
It's the problem with having talent though, mate, isn't it? If you lose it. If you've got no talent, you just big and run around the field and batter people. It's all right, isn't it? Yeah. If you have no pace or skills to lose, it's okay, isn't it?
Is that an insult to me? I didn't even listen.
He would never insult you, I'm sure.
It's my bad ear, you say.
Is that right? What do you think is going to happen this Saturday?
I think we are going to win, but it's going to be a brutal match. I'm really looking forward, I must say. I think it's going to be an absolute humdinger. First 10 minutes. I'd have to say, I'm already going to say fucking England are going to win. Some good battles.
Go on.
It'll be like everything. If the English back row functions, that's to me is the do or die. That functions, then I think we're going to be in trouble.
Are you a better spectator these days?
I am, because of a lovely pub down the road, about 400 yards, and I'll be in there on Saturday, right? There's 2 televisions. It'll be me and my favourite son looking at the rugby, and the rest of the bar will be looking at Cheltenham or something on the other television. So that'll be the sum of it.
How many sons do you have?
1. That's why I call him my favourite. When he plays for the, who's he play for? He's just picked up for the Wexford or the South East Leinster. That's the start of the Leinster machine. And I must say, people from the periphery looking on, they say, Jesus, Leinster and the province is doing so bloody well. Well, there's a huge amount of work being put in at a very, very low level. I mean, Tyke Furlong went through this system. Now, I'm not saying my young fellow anywhere near to him. He's probably as fast and in fairness, but he's not as talented. But I have to mention Declan O'Brien, who runs it. Who else? Larry, Des, and Morris, because they've the final match in the Shaggy Cup in about 3 weeks' time, and he's a better chance of being picked if I mention them, I'm sure.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, okay.
God only knows.
What would happen? What would happen on Saturday?
Back to Twickenham. Yeah, I think we're going to win it. Yeah.
Yeah, but tight and a massive battle, and the weather's going to be terrible as well. Does that favour any team in particular? Like, we're talking potentially snow here, certainly rain, cold, miserable kind of a day.
Doesn't suit us.
No, it doesn't suit us.
Why not?
I don't think. I think you look at the English pack, and yes, Laws is going to be gone, Hughes is going to be gone, and it's very difficult to replace those players with bigger players. But they've never been lacking physically in Twickenham. It's part of their DNA to beat teams up at home in particular. And I think this Irish team has tried to play. Even though it's methodical, I think it's a bit more of an expansive game, and it's a ball-in-hand game in conjunction with that box kicking from Murray and tactical kicking from Sexton. But I just think that in a tighter arm wrestle that England would have the upper hand, just because that's where I think you can switch into mentality of just brute physical force, and they're going to have that in spades this weekend.
Just to say, by the way, we're about to do our competition in the next few minutes. There's 2 finalists. I'm told you know who you are. 3 finalists, okay. I'm told you know who you are. If you could make your way down to this bottom corner here now, that would be great. Martin, can I ask you, it's a childish question in many ways. It's the kind of thing you'd ask a 10-year-old watching on. But I'd just be curious, who's your favourite Irish player at the moment?
Now, steady on. Oh, ex-player.
After Nick Popplewell, if you just look at the current breed, who do you really rate?
Yeah, I don't often think about who my favourite Irish player is, to be honest.
Do you not go to bed at night and say, God, who's my favourite Irish player? There's so many of them, in fairness, isn't there?
Who would you like to have played with?
I think, I'm going to avoid the question. I think Murray and Sexton at 9 and 10, you've got top-class players there. When I watch Ireland at the moment, they just seem all to know what they're doing. I know rugby's far more sort of orchestrated than when we played. Certainly you went through that transition. They're just very, very focused, and like you say, they're playing with the ball in the handle. They're getting wide, but they're still direct. They just look in really good form. And the depth you're generating at the moment is also impressive, because you used to think Ireland could produce a good 15, but who's going to come off the bench? Who's there with injury? So, favourite Irish player, God knows. I think they're all firing really well. The thing we've just been hearing about all the games you've won and Twickenham, all the rest of it. The thing for me that fascinates me at the weekend is what's the English crowd going to be like? How many Irishmen will be in there? Because I can imagine there's 10,000 plus going to be around and about Twickenham. It's an historic opportunity. Yeah. It's interesting hearing you guys talk about the Twickenham crowd, and it can be, because I sometimes you feel like they only really get raised up when you're playing. There's a massive challenge coming, and hopefully they'll think that with this Ireland game. We won't want to lose at home, and the players will have that as well, because they'll be disappointed with the season they've had. But this is almost a perfect game to finish off with, where the team's going to try and win a Grand Slam at your home ground. Let's not forget that this team's won 2 championships, and they know how to do it. They hopefully will raise themselves up, and these games, I always regard them as one-offs. In the Six Nations, I never regarded it as a championship, as a season like the club season. It was just 4 and then 5 one-off games where you've got to find a way to get yourself in that headspace. A team coming to beat you at home is enough of a challenge, but to win a Grand Slam at your stadium, it should be a huge incentive for that England team. And there's going to be a different back row whether James Haskell plays or Simmons, but hopefully they have that determination this week that we'll start with, we cannot lose. That's the absolute base, and then go from there. But it could be, like Nick said, it could be it could be very, very tense and a bit dour, but in terms of intensity and what's at stake, it's huge, and it could be a great game. I think the breakdown, when I watch Ireland get near the line, I was doing TV with Paul O'Connell. When they get you near your own line, they, to me, are the best team at getting over at the moment. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's obvious. If you're scoring tries, you're going to win games. You know, England's defence has been pretty good, but it's not unbeatable. But they haven't conceded, apart from the first half against Scotland when they were mentally just not ready to go. They haven't conceded a lot of tries. So if we can keep Ireland down near 15, 18 points, then you've got to think we've got to be able to get enough to get over the line. But it's a huge challenge for that team after a disappointing season.
And are you leaning strongly either way?
As Nick said, I've got to go with England, haven't I? But I've been impressed with Ireland. I've been impressed with the way they've played. But in saying that, every game there's been a what if. There's been a what if, and it's that tight. It's that tight a tournament. No team's that far away. I just want England to come out and do themselves justice in a way, because they haven't played as well as we know they can play. Whatever the reasons, and there's probably multiple. But the thing is, in this game, you can always have excuses. No one cares. You just got to go and play and win. And hopefully, the Twickenham crowd really get behind the team and get into the occasion and make it a really special game. I've been at the last two England games away from home, and the atmosphere has been fantastic. It's Paris, Scotland, the atmosphere has been unbelievable. So that's the great thing with the tournament. I've avoided your question of who's my favourite Irish player.
Yeah.
Willie John McBride's my favourite Irish player.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He was on the show this week, actually, so feel free to say why, because, he's a legend in these parts.
The great man, British Lion, fantastic player. When I was growing up, you start hearing stories about rugby, and you start learning about things, and you learn about things like the 74 Lions and the great Willie John McBride going down there. When you meet him, sometimes when you meet sort of people like that, they can't live up to the expectation because it's so great, but Willie John does and more.
Incredible presence.
Oh, yes. And I've heard him speak numerous times, but I would always want to hear him again, because he's just got, he's got a massive presence.
Yeah. Very last word to you then, before we get into the quiz. As an Irishman who's gone and won a Grand Slam, your memories of that week, and are there things that struck you afterwards, almost in terms of advice about the pressure, the build-up, the occasion, not letting it pass you by, or was it close enough to just like any other game when you got into it?
No, it's not like any other game. I think yes, there's extra nervousness. There's more requests for tickets. There's more there's more text messages. There's everything is heightened. It's different now with social media. It's all-consuming with that. Particularly, a lot of the boys will live on their phones these days, so they'll be taking all that information in, what's going on, what everyone thinks about them, good, bad, or indifferent. But it's not like any other game. There's an extra pressure that comes to it. I had 2 Grand Slam games. We got beaten out the gate, even though John was being kind to us early on. We got pretty wiped by that England World Cup winning team in 2003, and then that second opportunity in 2009. I think you just have to. All your focus is that you just want to play a good game. Okay. You want to give yourself a good shot at winning, and it's such a letdown to get into a situation like that. We did play quite well in the first half, and we just got overpowered in 2003. In 2009, you had to come back, and then we had a couple of moments, and I think that's what it'll take this weekend against England. There'll be one moment, or maybe 2 moments, and you just have to be the ones that are achieving those. If the weather's poor, it'll be tight, defences will be on top, so you just need 1 or 2 moments of inspiration. I just think with Ireland's accuracy over the course of the Six Nations and how disappointing England have been in that regard and at the breakdown, I just think that we have a slight edge, but there's nothing in it.
Yeah. One last point. There's a lot of the crowd tweeting in that Martin Johnson keeps referring to the British lines, and they're not too impressed with that. As this picture,
I actually usually correct people in that regard, but I'm not correcting him. He didn't.
It's offset by the fact.
I apologise for that. British and Irish line.
Willie John is your favourite player, so we can kind of accept that. As this picture demonstrates from 01, it's definitely British and Irish lines together. That's a young work experience man who's won a big prize. Wow. Wait, 21 there, Brian?
22.
22.
Yeah.
I've got hair. Keep that one up.
What were your memories of 22-year-old O'Driscoll coming in to Australia that time?
You scored those tries in Paris, hadn't you, on the way?
The year before, yeah.
Yeah. So, I love the Lions because you get to play with the best players. You get to you get your good English players and you get all the great guys. So you're looking forward to playing with them.
There's some fucking brutal ones now as well, though, isn't there?
But, well,
I mean, do you remember? I mean, no, there's no Scots here, but I mean, the Scots on our trip in '93 were just appalling, like. Seriously, I mean, not all of the Scots now, but probably
it does find
6 out of 7 of them.
It does find some people out, but I mean that was Drico getting on the world stage. I mean that night in Brisbane was a special night. It's the biggest regret of my career is we didn't win that series because we should have won that series.
Third one. Yeah, that would have been quite something.
We should have won that series.
You mean off the pitch? Obviously appalling. Not as players. You mean as people off the pitch?
Oh, they're great people, but I mean, we're just saying.
Oh, so actually bad on the pitch.
No, I'm just saying that your problem on a Lions tour, and that's where I think the great Donal Lennon was so fantastic, because you have two sides on a Lions tour. You have a Wednesday side and a Saturday side, and once the Wednesday side start feeling that they're never going to get onto the Test side, which is the Saturday side, quite a few of them just fuck off and do their own thing. So I mean, they don't put in training. They drink even more than they should. I'm not even drinking. I'm not saying, but they're a distraction.
Right.
And that's when you can lose it. And certainly, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I mean, you had Peter Wright.
We had a little bit of that.
But they should have been fucking sent home, frankly. Shouldn't they? They were of no use whatsoever. Like.
We had a bit in 01. The guys lost midweek to Australia B. And a few of them then, they saw the writing on the wall. The Saturday team, we'd beaten Queensland, we'd beaten New South Wales, didn't we? And a few of them, it was then, where 97, the great thing was the midweek team played brilliantly.
Yeah.
And those guys would always say we were the better team.
Well, that's what you need, because you need to be literally knowing that you're fighting. But I suppose the other end of it is the Wednesday side need to know that if they put in the graft, they'll get, if they deserve the spot, they're going to get the spot.
They're tough tours. Lions tours are tough tours. They're long, end of season, and they'll find some people out. Anyway,
anyone you wanted to send home before we wrap up? You want to name names?
No, not so much. I think it's different now. I think because of the level of organisation that you need, I think you've got, from a coaching perspective, because it's only 7 weeks now, you've got to have a fair idea what your test team's going to look like. I think there isn't the opportunity that maybe there was in '93 and to a lesser degree in '97, where there was a good chance everyone was on a level playing field, getting on the flight, and then you play your way into the team. I think there's preconceived notions these days as to who's going to be your. Probably you think you might know 7 or 8 of your test team, and then others have a chance to play their way in. And only if you have a disaster there, you're going to be dropped.
Yeah. So to round things off, Ireland, England, Ireland. Is
funny that.
Yeah, okay. Round of applause for the panel, everyone. So competition time. There we go. So you may hear a slightly different version of that on the radio tomorrow, I suspect. There's a few small edits. We are here with thanks to our friends at Heineken Rugby Club. And don't forget to check out HeinekenRugbyClub.com, where you can get discounts from the likes of Grafton Barber, Deliveroo, Captain America's Heineken, Light Tag Rugby, and IMC Cinemas. This is the very exciting part of the evening where we're going to send one of our finalists to a Champions Cup quarter-final of their choice. Adrian Barry is going to help me. We can see that the stage is pretty much set. So without further ado, it is time for a Question of Sport Heineken Rugby Club edition. Let's go.
Molloy.
No.
And now, it's time for the A Question of Sport Crappy Quiz Edition. Will you please welcome your host, the man with better hair than Sue Barker, Joe Molloy.
So welcome along. This is the shoutiest segment on Irish radio, making a rare appearance in public. It is the scintillating, stupefying, splendido Crappy Quiz, brought to you in association with Heineken Rugby Club and coming to you from the salubrious surrounds of Dublin's National Concert Hall. We are going to welcome tonight's teams. Captaining our first team is a man who had many happy memories of playing against England. Take 2009 for an example. He scored a try that day. He made one drop goal attempt and nailed it. He made a second drop goal attempt, and the Guardian live feed says, Brian O'Driscoll takes a ghastly hack at a drop goal and misses by miles. Good grief. It's Brian O'Driscoll, everyone. Joining Brian is the best-known Irish rugby coach who also happened to coach the USA, who also happened to play corner forward for Mount Bellew, Moylock in GAA. It's Eddie O'Sullivan, everyone. So joining Brian and Eddie is contestant more than one. Okay, what are your names, lads?
Phelan McHugh.
And?
Conan McGonigal.
Okay. Can't help but notice there are two of you. You've qualified by sending a video and tweeting hashtag OTBHRC, so I presume all will be revealed in your video.
My name is Phelan. I was playing rugby with my friend Conan over there, and we're in the ruck. And next thing I seen this biting, I turned around and he was nibbling on my arse with his gum shield still on. So I turned around and I gave him a little slap, but won the game anyhow. So.
I was in a ruck one day and my friend turned around and I was biting his ass. So the next ruck I was in, I turned around and he was right behind me and he put his finger in a very difficult position and the ref caught him.
Okay, we'll allow that. You're in. So our next team, our second captain tonight, best remembered for bringing England to Dublin in 2003 undiscussed and leading with the Grand Slam. Also that day, you'll remember Will Greenwood scored 2 tries. Also that day, you'll remember Ireland scored just 6 points. And that's about all that happened that day. It's Martin Johnson, everyone. And then joining Martin is the man who helped change the attitude of Irish rugby from always fatal, never serious, to always serious, never fatal. He helped improve professionalism by getting fitter, improving psychology, and having only 5 pints on the night before games instead of 6. It's the Greystones' great Nick Popplewell. And so we have our contestant. How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
What's the name?
It's Darren McMahon.
Dara, you tweeted using the hashtag OTBHRC this. I once served at Brian O'Driscoll and the Irish rugby team before a big game in Twickenham a few years back in Clonmel. He was always the last out of bed. The power went, and I stood in his precious slippers. Apologies. That was the best one we got, was it, Adrian?
So no, I wasn't lurking around his room or anything, no. So about 4 years ago, I think, before the game in Twickenham, he came to Clonmel and I was in the Clonmel Park Hotel. And during the time, they was in the 2-night stay in the glorious Clonmel Park. And drinking Heineken, of course. During the time, the power went, we had a bad storm at the time. And in the morning, normally Joe Schmidt would be down at 7 o'clock. Gordon Darcy would be down, first down, read the paper, keep to himself. At about 8:30, then Brian O'Driscoll would come down. He'd be the only one not dressed. He'd be in his dressing robe, still wearing his slippers. Be no food left, and of course, Brian O'Driscoll had to have some rashers or something, So,
Go on.
But anyway, in my rush to try and get Brian O'Driscoll some rashers, I accidentally tripped on his foot about 3 days before a Grand Slam decider in Twickenham. So, of course, my general manager wasn't too pleased with me at the time anyway. But, yeah.
Round of applause for that, I mean. You're very welcome. Best of luck. Any response?
What sort of slippers were they?
They were blue.
Incorrect.
Okay, so best of luck to both of you. A pair of Champions Cup quarter-final tickets for either Munster or Leinster, whichever you want to choose, including an overnight stay, and the runner-up will get a nice rugby ball signed by tonight's guest. I presume you'll go with each other?
Absolutely.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, round one is the opposition captain's round. So this round is it does what it says in the tin. You'll be asked a question, captains that is, Brian and Martin, you'll be asked a question about your opposing captain, answer correctly, you get 1 point. No conferring allowed. Okay, you're on your own here. Question 1 for you, Brian. Against which Six Nations side did Martin Johnson have his worst win rate as England head coach?
France.
Ireland.
That was a gimme, wasn't it, Brian?
Okay, Martin, question for you. Against which side did Brian O'Driscoll taste victory for the first time in a Heineken Cup final?
Northampton.
Leicester.
You don't beat them till then. That was a gimme for me, wasn't it?
All right. Adrian, 1-0.
Pretty shocking 0-0.
0-0.
0-0.
The worst record, the worst as head coach, Martin Johnson.
I got it wrong.
Oh, you said France.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right, I need you. I need you in a big way. 0-0. 0-0, excuse me. Okay, wow.
This is absolutely riveting, isn't it?
All right, round 2 is the Ireland versus England round. So in this round, you'll be asked a question about the Ireland-England rivalry in the Six Nations. These questions are for our 2 competitors, no conferring with your teammates. So question, lads, for you. In which year did England enjoy their biggest win over Ireland in the Six Nations? What year?
2003.
Well done. Yes. Very good.
Oh, in the Five Nations,
Yeah, 42-6, the final score. Okay. Ready to go? In which year did Ireland enjoy
Hold
their...
on for a second now, right? You've 2 of them and he's on his own.
Thanks,
What's the story
Nick.
like?
Story is, this is just the way it is. In which year did Ireland enjoy their biggest win over England in the Six Nations? Let's go.
2006.
You were fucking 7. 7, look.
7.
He couldn't see the thumb.
What's our score now?
The score after round 1, Joe, is that Team Brian have 1 point and Team Martin have no points.
Okay. So rapid fire round.
That's it.
Yeah.
Has anyone got a point yet? No?
They've got
1-0.
1-0, but it's all going to be decided by the rapid fire round. So get
Brilliant.
ready to go in a
Fantastic.
second. Here we
That's
go. Let's move on to the rapid fire round. It separates the men from the boys, the Martin Johnsons from the Johnson & Johnsons. It is the no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. In this round, you have 30 seconds to answer up to a total of 9 rugby-related questions. You can confer. You're in this together. Each correct answer scores you 1 point, and the total of this round is added to your total from all the previous rounds until we crown the winner. Okay. We're doing a clock on this, Adrian, are we?
Yeah, clock on screen, Joe, yeah.
All right, we're ready to go. Let's go. Your 30 seconds starts now.
Where are we against them?
Before this year, when did Ireland last win the Six Nations?
No, 15.
Who's made more Six Nation appearances, Brian O'Driscoll or Ronan O'Gara?
Brian O'Driscoll.
Name the current title sponsor of the Six Nations.
NatWest.
Which side won the English Premiership title last season?
Saracens.
Marty Moore is joining which province next
That's
season?
supposed to be going down.
A Spanish city will host the Champions
Oi.
Cup final
Bilbao.
this year. Name it.
30 seconds, for fuck's sake. They're up.
Who started? Who started loose head prop for Ireland last week against Scotland?
Ian Healy.
Which side did England beat on the opening weekend of this year's Six Nations?
Italy.
And that's the buzzer.
And that's the buzzer. The clock didn't work, we kept time. Jesus, Popplewell, you're a nightmare.
How hard is it to organise a quiz, like in fairness?
We're getting their score totted up so you'll know what you have to beat.
So it's, they got 7 correct there, which is pretty good going, so 8 points to beat.
They didn't get 7.
Can we kill Nick's mic? Is that it?
And how many seconds do they have to get that 7? The 30.
30.
That's not going to change, so it's going to be...
So,
You have to get
on 8.
all 9 questions correct to win and 8 to draw.
Okay.
Right.
You
And we can confer. And with no rush.
You need 8 to draw.
No rush.
8 to
Don't
draw,
rush,
9
don't
for the
rush.
win.
No rush.
Okay. Your
So
time
when that
starts...
goes to 0, we can stop. That's
Yes.
it. Right.
Your time starts now. Who's won more Grand Slams, England or Wales?
England.
When did England last win the Six Nations?
2017.
Name the current All Blacks head coach.
Steve Hansen.
Who scored more points in the Six Nations, Sexton or Farrell?
Sexton.
Eddie Jones coached which country before he took the England job?
Japan.
Which side do Munster play in the next round of the Champions Cup?
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Who Munster play?
Munster, next round of the Champions Cup. Who do they play?
Who they what?
Munster, who do they
Pass.
play? Which French side did Eddie O'Sullivan previously coach?
Hold on, we can confer now.
Who did he coach? Eddie there. Who did he coach in French?
Time's up. What's wrong with you?
Yes. I'm too busy looking at the 30. What are you saying?
Congratulations to our winners. They're going to the Champions Cup quarter-final. Have we got our rugby ball now? What's our final score? Final score 9-5. Hard luck to you. You do win a rugby ball signed by all our brilliant guests here. So well done to you.
Whoopie-doo to you.
Alrighty, that's us done, is it? Okay, that is us done. My thanks to Brian O'Driscoll, Eddie O'Sullivan, Martin Johnson, Dublin loves you now. They love you. And to Nick Popplewell, everyone. Thank you. That's us done. Thanks so much for coming. Great night. Thanks to HeinekenRugbyClub.com for helping us make it all possible. Enjoy Saturday. Thanks a million again. And good night, good luck. Safe home. Thank you.
Thanks a million for watching. If you want to subscribe, well, there's the button right there. If you want to see more videos, hit that down there.